Good evening. Welcome to the January 18th RSU 14 Wyndham Raymond School Department Board of Directors meeting. It is January 18th. It is 6:30. We are in the Raymond Broadcast Modular. Could I have a roll call, Mr. Superintendent?
Sure can. Kate Bricks.
Here.
Eric Colby.
Here.
Jenny Cummins.
Here.
Diana Forsling.
Here.
Marge Cavoni.
Here.
Pete Hensler.
Here.
Don Dillon. Anna Keeney.
Here.
Scott McLean.
Okay, if you could join me in the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Alrighty. There are no adjustments to the agenda this evening, and I will open it up to public input. If there is anyone from the public who wants to speak about anything that is not on the agenda, seeing nobody, I will close public input. First on our agenda is a facilities update with our Director of Facilities, Bill Hansen, on the Field Allen renovation project and RES's site work project. Mr. Hansen, the floor is yours.
Great. Good evening. I'd like to talk about the RS project first. I have Dwight Anderson here from Duca Hoffman. So Dwight, you want to join me up here? Okay, great. I'm going to assume you've all received the memo that I sent out and reviewed it. I'm sure you have questions about it. So we might as well start with your questions. That'd probably be the best way to go.
Before we do that, can you just give a real brief, because it's been a long time, and if we happen to have anybody at home who is
Sure.
watching, very, very brief, please.
I will keep it very quick. So
Thank you.
back in, 2011, we started looking at adding a ball field out behind RES. And their initial plan was a baseball diamond, a very small t-ball field. 2014, with the help of Alyssa, we started looking at opportunities of an IRT project similar to Camp Hines. And that the thought was, based on that model, that we would have the opportunity to buy the materials and the military would provide all the labor to create the project. So that was kind of the road we started down. One major hurdle we had in front of us was a DEP site permit. Really briefly, when they built the school, they utilized pretty much all the wetland impact they could without having, a major site permit change. And they even used the woods behind the playground as a buffer, vegetated buffer, so you couldn't even actually get in to impact that to increase the size of the wetland. So about a year-long process to get a DEP permit. We had to pay a pretty high in-kind fee for phosphorus impact to get the permit. I think it was around $15,000 to obtain the permit. So that's been the works in 2014 to now. Our first round of applications to the IRT program, we were turned down, but we were encouraged to resubmit, which we did. And what ended up happening is the federal IRT determined that the project wasn't big enough for them, and we got deferred to the state National Guard. Again, I'm very excited about that. We were notified in May that they want to meet with us in August. So at the same time, we went through and did a sustainable harvest to clear the area for the playground, as well as to relieve some of the density in the woods so that we have a chance to promote growth of the wood that was there and also improve the health of the forest. Of which we received some income for as well. But the good news was that it allowed us to at no cost to the district to get the area cut in the forest in a good place. So we met with the military, and the Maine National Guard is excited about working with us. I think it's a great opportunity, but it's a different opportunity than what the opportunity we would have with the National Guard that Camp Hines is experiencing. This is a learning for us this summer, is that they're limited to a 2-week window. And we had scheduled a 2-week window with them from the 17th of June to the 1st of July, plus or minus. We're hoping not too many snow days occur so we can meet that window. They're going to be using, both schools going to be using the kitchen as well as the gym to house the guard, as well as the work would all be occurring over at RES. So there's a 2-week window. So their capabilities, when we met with them, were to do no vertical work. And by vertical work, what I mean by that is there would be no fencing, no construction of buildings. They also weren't comfortable doing any of the technical work as far as the drainage goes. And I understand that, because that's not in their wheelhouse. They don't normally put in drainage, or if they do, it's to build something to support a military or a crisis situation, so they're probably not going to be as concerned as we would with drainage and water treatment for a long-standing, playground like we'd have back there. So we had 2 meetings with them on site. We went over the scope of work, things they couldn't do. In a 2-week window, they can only haul so much material. So we're looking at a fill project of around 15,000 yards of material. So that number doesn't mean a lot to me. When I think about that, I can't see that. So Dwight, if we're looking at that in terms of truckloads, how many truckloads are we talking, as you're thinking about that? It's in the order of...
It really depends on the size of the truck. The military has different size haul vehicles, so they have some 5 cubic yard vehicles, and they have some that'll haul up in the order of 15 to 18 cubic yards. So, I mean, it can add up, it can be on the order of 900 trips to haul that type of load, depending on which vehicles they have available when they actually come to do their training. That's some information we got from them, and they weren't sure exactly what they'd have for a vehicle, but they gave us an approximation.
Right. So you think about 900, basically almost tractor trailers of fill coming in. That's not a 2-week activity. They're just not enough hours of the day, or I think you'd have back-to-back vehicles. Plus, they don't have those resources. They're limited in the number of vehicles they can apply towards it. So when we bid the project out, which I sent the bid information to you, what we had to do is back off the work that we were provided to the IRT. Because they weren't. So what we proposed doing was bring in 10,000 yards of fill, or 2/3 of it, leaving them 5,000 to bring in that 2-week period, which they felt was reasonable. They could do that. There is no construction of the water quality filter. So they basically were going to come on site and take a stockpile of fill, move it, compact it, and shape the field as to where it needs to be. The other thing that we learned, and again, the assumption we made was more based off Camp Hines, and looking at it now, probably was not the correct assumption, is that they weren't able to do the grubbing or the removal of the stumps. So that we put on the contractor's plate. So you can see that what ended up happening, the original information we talked about in the board was around a $633,000 project, of which we were hoping to pay materials, which were approximately half, about $315,000. In reviewing my communications to the board, what I did notice is that we didn't talk about contingency as part of that. We talked about project estimated cost. I didn't put contingency in there, nor did I put in the cost of the engineering monitoring throughout the construction period, which is really important. So when I look at the numbers that 633 we started with back in 2000, and really that was early 2015, so we're almost 2 years later, the number that I provided to you for the cost of the project, which I'll open my notes up here to be correct on it, because I don't, we were looking at $732,000 for the cost of the project, so $100,000 more than we had talked about. And what we're not seeing there, relief on that 732 is that $115,000 estimated cost of the value that the military is putting into the project. Okay. So what I had recommended that we consider doing is actually as a lesser project of that. And before I get to that, I want to back up into how do we get to this project. We went from that baseball diamond to we have now, based on input we got from the staff of RES. They actually, and I can share that letter with you, it went through and said, these are some of the things that we want to see incorporated in that. That's kind of how that changed. And probably the last change that was incorporated that added to the scope of the cost is there's actually a road down to the lower field that's ADA compliant, which we didn't have before in the prior design. So there's an access road, actually, we need to get an ambulance down, that's actually part of that design that, again, wasn't there initially. So there have been changes, and the scope is that we have, that I present to you is that would meet what we think is the needs of the school for a very long time. Certainly, we can make some changes to that. The project can shrink if that's the wishes of the board. and we can certainly look at that. But this is kind of where we got to based on all the input from all the parties in interest. And again, with some changes. I want to tell you, I'm really excited about the opportunity to work with the military. These are great people who are working hard for our country. I think it's wonderful that they're going to come and help us and reduce the cost of this project, because there is a savings that we're going to be the benefit factor of. Do I wish it could have been a National Guard project, so they could have done all the stuff and maybe our costs would be less? Absolutely. But that wasn't a choice that we had. I still think it's a great opportunity. It maybe not as the same one we thought 2 years ago. So,
Bill, you lost me a little bit here. You told us that the original cost that we discussed was the $633,880, which I was following along with fine.
Yep.
And now we're looking at a project cost of $732,000. But then you mentioned that $633,880 did not include contingency.
Correct.
And did not include engineering. 10% contingency on that, $63,000, and the engineering, I'm going to assume, is about the same of $40,000. So if you take away the contingency and the engineering from the chart here that you have, it actually looks like the project went down. So that's where I'm lost.
well, and yes and no, because what you're not seeing there is the $115,000 of savings of the guard work. If I had to pay for that, the guard did not show up, the project actually would be $150,000 more. We were hoping that $633 was going to be more like $315. And I have a document that shows that basically it was approximately roughly 50% labor, 50% materials to do the work. So the project costs actually are quite similar. I understated that $633 by not including the contingency and the engineering. So that was something that I've discovered that I missed. So cost-wise similar. Total cost. The cost to the district is quite a bit different because of the work that the RT can complete. That's the gap that makes it a little bit more challenging project. Is the total cost isn't really different. It's the cost to the RSU.
Is the difference estimating the guard work at 50%, now it's at 33%?
Well, the value is, you see that the contractors gave us various different values of what they felt was, and I think that I think some put more effort into that than others. I'm guessing. I'm not in their shoes. I can't read their mind. So there's a range, between $115,000 and $51,000 and what they feel the value of it is. And the thing is if you think about it, if you're bringing fill to the site, you can have an operator with a bulldozer that's placing and compacting the fill, or you can have an operator with a bulldozer who's stockpiling it. We're choosing the second of that for then the guard to move it. So there is some, I think there's a range of costs there. I think that the folks that had the lower numbers may have not included the hall portion of the work that the military was going to do, but I haven't investigated that because, it was our recommendation to go with C.H. Stevenson, and we did meet with them and talk with them what they had expected with it. So.
Yeah, and just, oh, good.
So is it liquidated damages on the contract for that time frame?
This does have liquidated damages. It has payment performance bonds on it. We didn't do a bid bond because of the overall cost of it. Probably going to start doing that on all projects, and I learned that it doesn't cost contractors any money. It does tend to weed out folks who can't get that, but generally you can't get a bid bond, you can't get a payment performance bond either. So,
Right.
So or a bid, yeah, exactly. Yeah.
So at this point, we do have final approval from the military that they're ready?
Great question. We have been going back and forth, and I want to thank Mr. Prince and Mr. Davis. We've been signing a lot of papers with them to get through the final steps. I know that it is in final review at this point in time, and I was hoping to have an answer to you for this meeting. I don't have one yet. So we've gone through hoops and hoops, and I'm feeling that we're very near the end of that path. But as with any military organization, there's a whole bunch of hierarchy it goes through, and I believe it's near the top of that list, but I don't have an answer for you yet.
Where does the timeline for that? Where do they have a go, no go kind of?
I expected to hear by the 20th of this month So here we are, nearly at that point, so.
Mhm. So when do they make the decision? I mean, when they make the decision, when do you have to have a vote by, I guess is,
From the school board?
right.
Okay. For the project, if you back it up, what has to happen, there's a fair amount of time to bring those 900 truckloads of material to the site. The other challenge you have is that we're going to be bringing a drum grinder into the property to grind all the stumps. That's the plan. Those of you who might have been around the apartment school this summer, you may have heard it. I could hear it from my office. It's basically a big grinder they throw the big stumps into, and they use that to create erosion control material. So it's probably not something we want to have running during school time. I think it'd be fun to watch. And if I was in second or third grade, my eyes would be on the windows and I would not hear a single thing going on in the class. The hopes that I had is that we could do that grinding during February break. There'd be no kids on site. Okay. Now, obviously, a few stars have to align to make that work out. But when we talked to the contractor about that, the contractor, his desire was to start sometime in February with the hauling of material, because there's a road that has to be built, and then start hauling material out, and you have to get out there with equipment and actually remove the stumps from the area, stockpile them, and then bring the grinder in to grind them all up.
They've already been cut?
Yeah, it's all cleared. Yeah, space all cleared. So as far as timeline for the military, they were coming in the 17th of June for 2 weeks. So I anticipated hearing from them around the 20th of this month. So I have not heard yet.
Okay, I understand that, but when are they going to make the decision to go with the project or not to go with the project? And is that based on a vote that we give? Will they say, no, we're not going to go with the project if they don't have a vote by January 20th? Is my point.
No. Their choice to go to support the project is going to be, they'll say they'll support the project, and the board would have to move ahead with it. Yeah.
Okay.
Because it sounds like we've been penciled in. Since you have those dates, you keep saying June 17th,
Right.
so it sounds like they've kind of...
As part of their approval process, they needed to have a window in time and committed of space to be able to have this exercise, because you imagine the logistics of trying to get 200-300 people to have that time off to be there on that site. So we had to commit to those dates and times should they approve it.
We have a facility committee meeting next week, Kate?
Maybe.
A facility, will you have a site plan available for the facilities committee to look at?
We have one right here with us, actually.
And because this hasn't been before the facility committee in like a long time. We
I don't
haven't
think it's changed
We
too
haven't
terribly much since the
had any
last time you've
discussion
seen
on
it.
it. On anything, even with a
Okay, I think I put it right there on the side of the table. So. Oh, you gotta stand here. It's even better.
Deb, go ahead. She wants to join you, Bill.
She what's what?
She's going to join you.
Oh, sure.
Okay, hi, Deb Hutchinson, Assistant Principal at Raymond Elementary School, and I apologize for I was playing pickleball, came over to do this. I also wanted to let you know that Alyssa could not be here tonight because of a prior engagement, but we were both very concerned about this proposal going before the school board when we just saw this paperwork yesterday. So we had not had any information at all regarding the new proposals, and we're so willing to do whatever we need to do as a community and as a school and as a staff to make this project go through. And so if we have to take out some things and we have to make things smaller, we're very, very willing to do that. So just wanted to let you know, and if you need more information from, Alyssa's been so involved in this. She's put her heart and soul into it, and we just really need to do this for the safety and the security of the kids at RES. Okay?
Yeah. Deb, I think we'll probably know more after our facility meeting. Or should?
You would do what?
We'll probably know more after we have our facility
Okay.
committee meeting.
All right, but please let us know if you have anything we can answer. Okay, thank you.
Okay, I'm sorry, go ahead. Back to you, Bill.
We were answering questions, so I don't know what the questions.
What is different on that? Although actually, you might want to go over it quickly, because I think we have I think we have 3 board members. This is what happens when projects take a long time.
I'm familiar with the project.
I know, because you were there.
So, if you look at it, this is the proposed soft play area. It's actually a little bit, it's moved slightly and a little bit larger. So here's the soft play area. It's a little bit larger and it's moved slightly. You can see there's a hard play area off to the side here, which is non-athletic hard play, so it would be for hopscotch and those things. That was, again, input that we received from the school for things that were important. Separate from that on the side here, there's actually another second hard play area that has a basketball court on it, so that those 2 areas can kind of, they're nicely separated so that you don't have the bouncing ball running into the kid who's playing hopscotch or foursquare or what have you from basketball. What you see here is this is a 12-foot wide paved access road, which is paved the entire way, and then actually it's also paved to its turnaround where it comes down to the field level here. So it provides us ambulatory access all the way down to the bottom of the field, should we need that. We also have, this is ADA compliant as far as access from the turf field as well as down to the soft play area down to the turf field area. Now, that's kind of where we get into a little bit of this 15,000 cubic yards of fill. You can see we're proposing actually a new building that's here that replaces the 2 smaller buildings that's there, and the generator pad gets moved further away too, and the propane is moved to the far corner. Right now the propane is right near the entrance to to that play area. So that's kind of a pretty much a nutshell. Dwight, you want to add anything?
Yeah, it might help to show the existing tree line.
Yeah.
Because the tree line today really sets the limit for like snow activities when the students are sliding and whatnot. And right now, they only have a short distance before they're, right at the edge of the woods there. So what we really were trying to do is give them, an actual play field. Because they really don't, there's not one behind the school today. So this 140 by 210 foot rectangular shape is just a grass field for them to play on, which is also gives them still a slope to slide, but now they can actually run out onto a field, not run into the woods. So this is really the biggest part of the project that drives the fill, the 15,000 yards of fill. Without that fill, you can't create a flat space like that.
Right.
The other features up in here are largely what's there today. This existing soft play area is not much different in size than the new one. It's just shifted in location to accommodate the slope that's needed to provide that play field. And then the other features that are needed are water quality filters, which replace the stormwater buffers that were there before. With this woods being taken, we needed to put that in to meet your permitting requirements associated with the Chapter 500 for the DEP and phosphorus for Panther Pond.
Can you give me some information about the ADA compliant path or road down? What is the composition of what will the composition of the
Sure.
it be?
It'll be paved. Right now, there's proposed, it's actually, as part of the planning board review, they required it to be 16 feet wide. It was shown 12 before. But this is a turnaround. This is actually emergency access.
Mm-hmm.
The actual ADA access will be a walkway across here, 6 feet wide. But where it comes together with the emergency access, we actually widened it up to 8 feet. It's paved with gravel underneath. You can drive an ambulance or pickup truck down it, and it'll also serve as a sidewalk. Whether it gets plowed during the winter is yet to be seen, because I think it's going to be snow covered on the field. You're probably just going to be using it for sliding.
I've just done many recess duty back there, and I'm worried about access to that space when you are overseeing recess, and the children will be going down to that soft space.
Sure. And this will provide a 5% grade, which is compliant with ADA as a continuous slope. Yeah. And again, the rest of the features, the soft play, the hard play, they're really, the hard play, we have provided basically half of a small basketball hoop area and a little bit of area for some hopscotch over in this area, but it's not excessive. This is really a pretty
Right.
modest
No.
playground area, and there's not a whole lot more to add other than the utility shop. We had to move around some utilities, as Bill said, in that corner to accommodate the improvements.
Anybody else got a question?
Yeah, a few years ago, there was harvesting that took place, and that is where the current tree line is right now. So what I'm hearing is there's still a significant amount of trees that still need to come out.
There was harvesting done this past summer.
Yeah, I believe it was this past summer, or
This
And that's the extent, I mean, with the exception of maybe 5 or 10 feet in a few areas, because the layout might not have been
Sure.
perfect by the forester. The 2 acres that needed to be cleared has been cleared.
Has been cleared.
Yes.
That's so. I've actually seen the back of that, so I really kind of understand why we need 900 trucks.
Right.
So, I guess my question is this: we're going to be building that whole area right up. So if you're basically standing at the back of the school, it's going to be relatively flat, going straight across, or is it going to grade down?
Your finished
To the
floor.
field.
Yeah, no, I follow what you're asking.
Yeah.
So the grade of the finished floor is about 563. This field will be down at about 550, so it's about a 13-foot drop,
Okay.
which is why the walkway needed to be so long to be at a 5% grade all the way to this point to get down to that elevation.
Sure.
So it will be terraced.
Okay.
You'll come out, this soft play will be at grade, relatively close to the finished floor of the building. This will be down about 13 or 14 feet.
Okay.
And then it drops further where we fill up the slope here to 2-to-1 to catch grade.
Okay.
And that was really done purposely so that we had a sliding area for
Right.
the kids. And they actually roll out onto a flat field so that, right now they continue into the woods or hit a fence.
For long periods of time.
We ran the grading on what you were talking about, and it started to get up into 40,000 cubic yards, and it made no sense.
Right. Okay. So how thick is the fill going to be once it's all completed down to the sub-forest floor that's currently at right now?
It really varies quite a bit. The highest fills you have are on the order of 20 feet in this area.
Okay.
But then as you come back, we're actually cutting into the existing bank here a few feet. So you have it there, if you were to draw a section through it, you'd chase slope up when you start to flatten out. That's kind of your peak fill at maybe 20 feet over here, and it's less on this end. The exact number, I'm not sure, but it's maybe 10 feet. And then as you come back into the bank, you actually come into where you're cutting into the existing ground.
So maybe there's a possibility that we wouldn't have to excavate the stumps and grind for that entire ball field, just the areas that might be impacted by drainage?
Well, the stumping and grubbing, it's the way it's worked out now, the DEP now likes you to actually use that material for your erosion control. So we actually do excavate all the stumps under the ball field. Now, you get into the Maine DOT requirements, and when you get into a slope like this, we can leave a few of them, but it's not a big cost savings because
Okay.
we want that erosion control mix that we place at the toe to catch any, it actually filters pretty well for the stormwater.
Okay.
Anybody else? Okay, guess that's it on RES. Thank you. All right, Bill, and do Field Allen.
Okay, feel now. Update on feel now. As you're aware, the last 2 summers, we've taken Field Allen apart and put it back together again like Humpty Dumpty. And it's been a little bit of a challenging winter as we're trying to get all the automation under control, but I think we're getting there. It's getting better. It's heating a little bit differently with the windows that we have, and also with the changes we've made in the caseworks have in some cases reduced the effectiveness of the heat as we've closed them in. But the teachers are enjoying the bookcases they have, so it's a plus or minus. I did meet with PDT looking at a phase 3, and also talked with Don about, you know, the pending middle school project. So had some further discussions with Lyndon concerning the building, and it was Don's idea. He says, well, isn't Field Allen more like a big portable? And I said, you know, it really is, right? If you were to look at a school building, you know, Field Allen, we're fortunate the building was there. If it were not there, we would have somewhere around 6 portables sitting out there to house those kids. So one of the things that we've talked about is structuring our application as such. So the financial numbers that I got back from PDT concerning the renovations for this next year were quite a bit higher than what I feel they should be. And so it's really my recommendation that we actually put a halt to the renovations of Field Allen for this year coming up, and get our application in for the middle school and see where we stand. We're in a good place. The only thing I might want to look at considering would be to remove the flooring in the art room. It is the only exposed ACT flooring that we have. Okay, so we could look at that. The disadvantage of doing that as a single project is you don't have the economies of scale as if I were to take out the remaining ACTs. And by that I mean asbestos-containing tile. That's what we're talking about. It's not a dangerous situation. It's covered with wax. It's pretty inert unless you take a hand grinder to it, and which I don't think anyone's ever going to do. But we could look at that as an alternative, just to do that in the art room. Any other ACT is covered in carpet in the remaining rooms. So I think it would be my recommendation to the board and to the facilities committee that we suspend our construction in Field Allen for a year, see where we are with the middle school. I mean, the issues we had before, the windows and the siding and the walls, that's all behind us, and the building's functioning pretty well. And I don't know what Drew's thoughts are on this, but I think that the middle school application in that direction is something that I think we should put all our focus into. And hopefully a year from now, we'll have a better picture of where that's going. And then it may help us with a picture of how we want to purpose Field Allen. So maybe our purpose for it might be different, and there's all sorts of ideas there. So rather than go through, you know, the plan was to complete the remodel, so it would be done and outfitted as if it was a middle school building. Maybe it's more prudent to wait a year to see that, because maybe that use might be something different. So I think that's really the best choice. I had estimated a renovation cost this next year to be somewhere in the $600,000 to $800,000 range. The numbers I got from PDT around $1.4 million. I had a brief discussion with that construction about where their thoughts were, and they're closer to my numbers. Now the thing is these are very preliminary, and I get myself in trouble every time I give preliminary numbers, because, you know, we're going at 1,000 miles an hour, 10,000 feet off the ground as we're looking at this stuff. I'm not digging down into the nitty gritty. But I really think it should be best for the RSU to put it on hold for a year. Let's get through our application, see where we land. And then I think we'll have some really clear direction. And it would give me another year to refine those costs, to see what's out there. And I also feel that there are some other projects that are more important, that we could put that funding that I had planned for that against, that would be more beneficial to the school and to the students, considering the fact that we're really in a pretty good place. And I'm happy to discuss that in more detail with the facilities committee, but you know, that would be my recommendation, that we put that on hold and we wait until such time that, you know, we really know what's going to happen with our proposed new middle school.
Bill, remind us again what the $600,000 to $800,000 that was planned for the school is going to cover.
So the phase 3 construction that we had planned would cover the final removal of the ACT materials of the entire building.
All of it.
Okay. It would be new ceilings, new lights, and like in Field Allen, room number 7, if you go in there, we put in the ceiling a fan coil unit. So that's serving is the heat for the space as opposed to the radiators. And the feedback that we've gotten so far from the teachers and the teaching staff is that they really want to see the caseworks that we have. And if you take a minute, I'm happy to show you. If you go into Field Allen rooms 9 and 11, you're going to see there's some nice bookcases that they really enjoy with benches on them that has the heat incorporated into it as well. That's the design that they really wanted to see, and I think it actually works quite nicely. It allows collaboration. So new caseworks, new ceilings, new lights, and HVAC to provide heat both from a mechanical ventilation as well as radiation. So you're pretty much, it finishes off the inside of the building.
And what are we looking at for construction cost escalations right now?
4 to 6% is what I'm seeing.
Annually, 4 to 6?
You know, and you know, I don't know how things are going to change in this next few years as we, you know, a lot of change is going to happen starting on the 20th, right? So who knows what will happen with construction costs. I think that's safe to plan on that, though.
We're all set?
Thank you.
We're all set? Okay, great. We'll wait to hear back after the facilities meeting. Okay, great.
Yep.
Thank you for coming, you know, and I apologize for the fact that you had to go up there like right away the minute you walked in that door.
One more thing got me. That one more thing.
Yeah. Okay, next on our agenda, and by the way, thank you for coming. We've never had our librarians here before. I'm very thrilled. Our district libraries, Amy Denica is the high school librarian, and Kristen, is it Chabanel? Is the educational technician. 3, they're going to talk to us about the role of libraries in our district and the vision of the future of libraries. And our director of curriculum, Christine Hessler, has come to assist them.
They don't need my cue. We do. We have a couple of handouts. There's a short agenda that will hopefully help you follow along, and then an information literacy assessment that we'll talk about a little bit later. I apologize for my voice. I came down with a cold yesterday, so.
Don't breathe on anybody in the
Well, we're really delighted to be here, and we're very appreciative of your time. We had the good fortune of talking with Mr. Prince and with Christine a couple of weeks ago to share with them what our mission was in our school library at the high school, and really what our vision is for libraries in the RSU in the years to come. And after that meeting, they said it would be really great if you could come share this with the school board as well. So we're happy to do that, and we're really happy to be here with you tonight. We're going to start off with a short video that was produced for us by Gary Harriman. We've been working with him on this for quite a while. But we love it because it'll allow our students and teachers and administrators to talk to you about the libraries in their school and what it means to them. So we'll start with that.
Today, the librarian is out offering services to classrooms, collaborating. I collaborate with the librarian that really brings learning alive for kids. But also, a librarian has to be very tech savvy to understand the media, the role of all these electronics that we're using, accessing the internet, and really how to use the software programs so that kids can be literate for research and library skills.
I think also, your role is helping to navigate this age of information. And not only do you have all of the books here, but you have all these different databases. And I think teaching kids that when they are doing research or when they're trying to investigate certain things, like what do you use this for, and how do you navigate that? How do you do a Google search and get back information that is going to be relevant and actually factual.
And librarians devote their life to finding whatever you need for research or pleasure. There's behind-the-scenes internet resources that you don't see when you walk into a library, but the librarians can get into library loans. They can go on ERIC and marvel and things that I only know the names of. And
The other piece that we rely heavily on the library for is teaching students how to research, how to access relevant databases, how to determine if websites are reliable or not, and that's a critical skill in today's world. There's no substitute for having someone in-house who can help them with book choices and the collection that we have here. I use the library a ton to help me teach research skills. I want to make sure that I'm teaching what is the common vocabulary when it comes to research, the common format, the common steps. So I really rely on Amy here at the high school to help educate me on how to teach the students. Every single one of my classes comes to the library, or Amy comes to my room, and she does a lesson on how to find primary sources, how to cite those sources, how to use those sources within their work that I'm asking them to do. So it is a huge help.
We are tasked with working with teachers to try and make sure that research and information literacy skills are as embedded and as important a part of the curriculum as any other content area.
Our students are growing up in a world of print, even though the print doesn't look like it did when we were growing up. There's print everywhere. They're on Twitter, they're on Instagram, they're on Facebook, and etc. So it's even more important than ever that classroom teachers collaborate with somebody who really knows print in all of its forms.
I think that's probably our #1 job, especially in school libraries, is to make sure that we are working with teachers, that we understand what the curriculum is. I'd say any librarian you talk to is probably as well versed in the Common Core as any classroom teacher, and should be. It's frustrating to us to think that there are people out there that could use our help that are afraid to ask us or perceive that we're too busy. We're not. That's what we're here for. And there are always books to be shelved, and there are always books to be cataloged, and there's always stuff to be done. But our first priority is students and faculty.
Libraries are different today because of the use of technology. While we still are getting books out, and that's the main focus, we also focus on computer literacy and digital literacy, and it's a different kind of aspect of libraries that we didn't see, a while ago. And that's an important part of what the kids need to know, because we're going into a technology kind of world. And
librarians today they wear so many different hats, and I think that because we're in a digital age and technology drives information and databases, and it's just that's a whole kind of culture shift in education at the college level too. The expertise of the librarian is supposed to maintain is probably well beyond what most degrees offer, and you kind of have to be motivated to stay current. The librarians here, both Amy and Kristen, are as much about managing information and technology and databases and DVD players and Apple TVs as they are finding resources for teachers and students when they're doing research. Yes, it is still about taking out a book and keeping track of what's a bestseller that kids are going to be interested in for young adult literature, but it is also very much about keeping abreast with what's going on with technology to aid teachers in research, to aid students in research.
My freshman year, I did a research paper about the fall of the Roman Empire and how it relates to our society today. And I was in the library as much as I could be because we were given class time to work on the research paper. And I came in here and I asked Ms. Denneker, is this a reliable source? Do you think I could use this? And then I used the video as a source too, so I asked how I could cite that. So just coming in here and having her to help me with all of those things helped me thrive because I was able to definitely use my time wisely with that.
When I was in 5th or 6th grade, I used to go almost every day. I would ask my teacher hey, I finished my lunch, can I go to the library? Or, hey, I don't really want to go out to recess today, can I just go to the library, please? And I'd come and I'd read. Having Miss Shadler here really helps, especially trying to find different books that I want to read or different authors that I want to try out. A lot of times I don't know where to look for a book, or I want to ask her, hey, what do you have that's new, or what do you have that you think I might like? And she knows like everybody in the school. And
it's different than it was in the past, when you came in only to find a book and sit and read quietly or just leave with the book. Now it's a place to have conversations, it's a place to find your next read, it's a place to find books and magazines and all kinds of media that meet their needs, no matter what their interests are.
Because it's not just about the information you're getting, it's about how you're receiving it and how you're interpreting it.
So we'd like to talk with you a little bit more directly about 21st century school libraries and what they mean to us and what we hope they'll mean to our district in the future. So I'll start briefly by saying what we're doing. I think you could see from the video that the role of librarians in schools has changed quite dramatically in the last couple of decades. Our job is multifaceted now. We're responsible for dealing with information literacy and instruction in the classroom. We co-teach with teachers all the time. We are always promoting literacy, as we always were, but we're trying to do it in more community-oriented ways through programs like Teen Trendsetters. We're still responsible for collection development, both print, but now also online resources. We're responsible for curating databases and other things that students and teachers need and can use. We strive to be technology leaders and innovators in our schools and to really help get technology out into classrooms. And we try really hard to work to be professional development leaders and to offer teachers lots of opportunities to learn and to grow. And we would love to spend our 20 minutes telling you about all the ways in which we do that. We don't have time, though. So what we do have for you, get this to work, other way, sorry, is I would ask you at some point when you have time to check out our school library website. This is the high school library website. It's whslibrary.org. Under the home menu here, there are a couple of things. We have our annual report there, so you can get more information about our library specifically. We've also created a mission and vision page, which sort of will work in tandem with the information we're giving you tonight. And we have lots of links there where you can read more about what we're presenting to you tonight. That page is here, and so it sort of follows the same menu that we're doing now. But one of the things that we did is we created a I Love My Library Padlet. And so what we did was we wanted all of our students and teachers who come in all the time and say, we love the library, it's really useful to us, to be here, but of course they couldn't, although we have a couple of very dedicated people who are. But what we did was we created this Padlet so that our teachers and students could share directly with you their thoughts on their library and what it means to them. So please feel free to check that out at some point as well. And so now I am going to turn this over, hopefully, to Kristen. Kristen Chavanel, who's going to talk about the benefits of school librarians.
Hi, everybody. Thanks for your time tonight. I really appreciate it. As Amy explained, librarians have many different roles in schools today. We teach information literacy skills, we assist with technology, and of course, we also promote reading. So while some people might think that the library is irrelevant today with access to the internet and Google, the opposite is actually true. So I'm going to go over some of the things that we do and some of the benefits of a school librarian. So one of the things we do is we help students sift through the immense amount of information available to them. One study showed that 83% of information available online is overwhelming to most students. So it's our job to show them where to find the information that's accurate, how to evaluate that information, and then and then provide them tools for teachers and students so they can effectively locate and assess those information sources. We also teach both students and teachers how to differentiate between accurate and inaccurate websites. So this is even more challenging today with the fake news trend. In one class that I taught, I showed the students 2 different websites that claim to be abcnews.com. both the teacher and the students couldn't tell the difference between the two and couldn't tell me which one was the actual ABC News website. One is and one is not. One is fake. So this is particularly alarming in the light of a new Stanford study that found that students' ability to assess information sources was dismaying, bleak, and a threat to democracy. It's big claims, but you know. Students struggle with differentiating between actual news articles and native advertisements. So they don't know what sponsored content is, so they can't tell the difference between what's actual news and what's an advertisement from a sponsor. So the study explains that this is something that students really should be exposed to when learning starting at elementary school. Students are also really easily duped when looking at social media news articles. They very often believe and share information that's either biased or completely false. So it's our duty to stay current with these new trends and teach others how to evaluate and check the information that they locate. So not only are we tasked with the job of teaching how to locate books and online sources, we also show students how to evaluate and organize information as well as the research process from start to finish. We instruct teachers and students how to do keyword searching, navigate the databases, properly document resources, take notes, and how to read and analyze journal articles. We also teach them about copyright, fair use, and how to avoid plagiarism. So we still encourage reading, and our work can have a profound impact on all of our schools. One study found that students in elementary schools with at least one full-time certified teacher librarian performed better on state tests. So teaching kids a love of reading will not only help them in school, it will also provide them with a strong foundation for college and the workforce. We also co-teach with educators in all of the departments, which enhances learning and deepens the understanding of the material. There was an experiment described by David Lorcher, who is an expert and leader in the information science field, and he performed this experiment where he had teachers teach a research lesson alone and then had them rate how the students did at the end of that process. So as far as meeting and exceeding expectations. So as you can see, the average across over 2,000 students, the students only met or exceeded expectations 48% of the time. However, when the teacher co-taught with a teacher librarian, you can see that the results jumped up to the students meeting or exceeding expectations to between 70 and 100% of the time. So these are some of the many benefits that school librarians bring to schools. We enhance and transform learning and are a vital part of the education process. Now, I think Christine is going to explain what your librarian can do for you.
Can I ask one question?
Oh, yeah, of course, yes.
Can you tell me what a certified teacher librarian is?
What is it? It's
Yes.
someone that has a master's degree in library science.
Thank you.
And has gone through the process.
Which Kristen is getting this May. I'm excited about it. And so I'm thrilled that Amy and Kristen are both here to share their experience, because if you have not been to Wyndham High School Library in a while, you are in for a treat. I get to see this firsthand, so does Mr. Hubble. You go in there and it's a hub. And even just watching them interact with students, co-teaching lessons, the other piece that I draw such strength from is these two ladies have devised this curriculum in teaching information literacy and have embedded it in all of the contents at Wyndham High School right now. So we are seeing amazing things as research rubrics that are now consistent across the high school. So no longer is an English teacher working to strive to do many different things. That piece is done and collaborated on, and we have it full strong. So if I am doing research in health, they're using the same standards and research rubrics that they would be doing in social studies. So there's no longer jumping from class to content where it's different this way and different here, which, you know, our conversations have been, wouldn't this be amazing if we brought this down to middle school and these students came in? So as we are looking forward, and the strength that we see in their leadership is strengthening the RSU all the way down to the K level. And we know that that will take time. But as I'm unrolling and sharing with them curriculum, that standards that we're asking for students and performance indicators, they give a whole different lens to say, this is where our expertise is. Let me help co-teach this with teachers, and it becomes so much stronger. add into the mix Natalie at the high school, who is our lead techno person, and it is an amazing experience. Teachers I know are here tonight will speak to it much more eloquently than I can, but as an outsider going in who isn't part of that, it is an amazing experience to watch students be excited about researching. They're leaving with skills that will tell them, I'm ready for college, I am ready to go on and do this independently, because the two ladies that are teaching them, along with their teachers, how to do this piece. They are experts, and they continue to keep learning what's newest out there and jumping on it, so our kids leave with the latest information. It isn't shelved, and we do the same thing for 5 years. So honestly, I'm in awe of what they've been able to do there and the people that they have connected with across the state and New England to bring forward to our students this amazing part of curriculum that they are working through. You guys want to go?
Yeah, thanks for sharing. Yeah. So I'm just going to talk a little bit about what makes an effective school library program. And quite simply, I think an effective school library program is one that prepares students for life after high school. There were a couple of studies done a few years back that really make this plain. The first was done by the Pew Research Center, and they did a study called How Teens Do Research in a Digital World. And they polled just over 2,500 classroom teachers and asked them to assess their students' research abilities. And across the board, 94% of them said that for their students, research was synonymous with Googling, which is something we all probably have seen at home or at school. They were then asked to delve down a little bit deeper into their individual skills and to think about and assess those on a scale of excellent, very good, good, fair, and poor. And most of the teachers ranked their students somewhere between good and fair on those skills. The second study was done by Project Information Literacy, and they polled college freshmen, people that were going into college directly out of high school, and asked them to self-assess on those research skills. And the two studies, when looked at together, even though they weren't done in tandem at all, it's really quite striking to see that those skills that the teachers were ranking only as good or fair were the same ones that students were struggling with as they entered college. So these are places where we're really deficient. And the Project Information Literacy study sort of summarized by saying, we can't assume that because students are digital natives that they are adept at using all the tools available to them on the internet or even library databases and those types of things. And they said that often they didn't think it was that students weren't good at research, it was that they just hadn't been exposed to it in high school. They hadn't done enough of it. And so consequently what happened was those students didn't know the value of their libraries, they didn't know the value of the resources that were provided to them, they didn't know what librarians could do for them, and so they weren't tapping into those resources in college either. And they said that they sort of concluded by saying that these misconceptions are likely to keep perpetuating as long as school libraries remain kind of underfunded without the proper staffing in them to really bring those things to the fore. So what are we doing at Windham High School to try and make sure our students are prepared? First of all, on a K-12 level, we've been working really closely with Christine and with the other district librarians to develop a curriculum map of skills. And we hope to be able to move that forward a little bit more, and I can talk about that after. But we've sort of mapped out what skills should be taught at what grade levels, and we hope to be able to attach that to some standards and learning targets soon. In the high school, a couple of years ago, we held an information panel where we asked college librarians and professors to come to Windham High School, and we had schools there from SMCC to Bowdoin, representatives of all those schools. And they spoke to our faculty and staff about what they were seeing as far as students coming into college and what they needed. And actually the Bowdoin assessment that I passed out to you was pretty enlightening for us. So that was handed to us by the Bowdoin librarian, and she said that that is sent home to all of their incoming freshmen each summer, and they fill that assessment out and return it. So before they've even set foot on campus, the school is assessing them on their information literacy skills. So it's really essential that we be working on this. We've also, and I'm going to switch over now, I keep going the wrong way, to our library website. We've been working with St. Joe's and USM, although I think I probably need to refresh this page because I don't think it's up right now. But they have created pages for us on their library websites for our early college students, so students in our classes right now that are taking, yeah, there's a there's one for St. Joe's up now too. I think it just didn't refresh from earlier. But our students can go to those pages and look for information. And we're also hoping in the spring to have those librarians in so that students in our school that are going to be matriculating out to those schools can have a day where they get to meet their college librarians and learn about what some of those resources are. But probably most important to me, I think, is our research curriculum that we've been developing. So, sorry, this is not working quite right. We have worked with teachers in the science, English, and social studies departments. Jenny Shapiro is here, and she's one of the people that's been working hard with us on this, to create a school-wide research curriculum. So the first thing that we did was to set up a document that has universal requirements for all of our research papers and projects. So even if something isn't being directly taught in a class, we would hope that the teachers would at least make sure that these requirements, these basic requirements, are met for every research project that's turned in at Windham High School. We've also developed a scope and sequence. So these are the learning, these are the learning targets for our students. They're broken down by content area and by grade level so that it's clear to each teacher in each content area and grade level what they should be teaching. These align with the Common Core and with the American Association of School Librarians Standards for 21st Century Learners. And if you do end up going back to look at some of those studies that I cited, you'll see that many of the skills that we are dealing with here are the same ones that students reported having difficulties with when they moved on to college. And then lastly, as Christine mentioned, we have developed a school-wide rubric for research. So we have a graduation standard centered on research, and this is our common scoring rubric. All of these things are being piloted this year, so we're hopeful that we can get them off the ground. So while we've come a long way, there's still a long way for us to go. These skills are still not really mandated, even at our level, and we certainly would like to see this type of thing filter down to the lower grades so that we have a clear and direct connection K to 12 in our district. And we hope to work with Mr. Prince and with Christine in the next few months to make a plan for kind of how that might happen. So, oops, I keep going the wrong way. So what does this mean? What is our vision for libraries in the future? I didn't do that. My hands weren't even on it. Okay. For libraries in the future of the RSU. We would, based on the research and our experience, we would like to recommend that there would be a certified librarian in every school with support staff. We'd love to see that an information literacy curriculum is required in students K through 12. Librarians should be viewed as technology leaders in their school who can work with the integrators and teachers to help promote technology. Appropriate funding for collection development, both print and online resources. There's a lot more that we have to get for students now. A flexible schedule for students at all, or for librarians at all grade levels, so that they can get out into the classrooms and collaborate and work with teachers. We'd love for librarians to be seen as professional development leaders in their schools, and for professional development opportunities to be available for all librarians in the district, just as they are for other teachers. We know these are lofty goals, and we certainly don't expect them to happen overnight. But it is our vision for what we would work toward, and we look forward to working with Mr. Prince and Christine and all of you to try and make that a possibility. We would love to take questions if you have any now, and please feel free to email us or call us if you have questions after you've had a chance to look at other materials that we've provided. And please do stop by the library sometime. We'd love to see you and show you around. I don't do.
I'm here because I'm a fan. Sorry, Jenny. No, they're really fantastic. I use Amy and Kristen all the time. I'm in there every day. And along with Natalie, who's our tech integrator, we're able to, I'm better able to teach research on, a day-to-day basis, and then with big research projects, as well as sort of having cool vehicles via Natalie and technology to use with the kids, so it's not just boring old research.
What?
Yeah,
Not boring. We like it. I guess that's our job.
The kids. Hey.
Thanks for your presentation. This is really interesting stuff. I'm impressed with what you came up with.
Thank you.
I'm really interested in the information literacy standards.
Mm-hmm.
Are there state standards for that? Are you creating the wheel, or are they out there?
We're sort of
You're creating the wheel
a little bit, I think.
All right,
I mean,
trailblazers,
This
I
is
like
Dorothy
that.
Hall Riddle, who happens to be Jeff Riddle's wife, but also another librarian extraordinaire who came out tonight to support us. Yeah, no, there's not really anything set. So the American Association for School Librarians has their 21st century standards for 21st century learners, which is sort of our guideline. And they provided a crosswalk to the Common Core state standards. And so we have those sort of aligned with Common Core. And so when developing our standards for the school, that's what we used, was those two documents. And I would say right now they're sort of the standard.
There are state standards, just not in our state, but there are library and research standards in other states in the country.
I love the research rubric. I really like that.
Thank you.
And particularly in the past couple of months when we've heard a lot about fake news, I'm really interested in that side-by-side that you had of ABC and you know, I might have to, ABC.
The one on the right was actual.
I might have to come in and get a little tutorial so that I can figure that out.
I'm with her.
Yeah, because I think that more than anything for me really resonated. When you're doing research, how do you know what's real? And I think we need to teach that because I think that's very valuable.
Yeah.
So thank you for your work. This is great.
You're welcome. Glad that's helpful.
You said you were running a pilot program. Now, who does that include? What
So
group is-
we, so with Jenny's help and other people in other departments, we generated these documents last year. And so what we're trying to do now is find a way to get them out into the school and get teachers using them, get them, you know, to have us into the classroom. And really, I'd say for us right now, the most important document is that scope and sequence, because we've really scaffolded skills up across the grade levels, but also across the content areas, because all of this is sort of integrated in, and we need to hit it multiple times, but there's no research class. And we wouldn't really advocate for that either, but that means that we have to sort of coordinate when and where and how things are taught so that students don't get the same information repeatedly or miss things, you know. So so that's really the document for us that's crucial right now, and we're trying really hard to get that out into our school and get teachers using it. So that's our challenge right now, is just making sure that that gets fully implemented.
Cool. Anything else?
No, I think that's great. I think we like this because some of us have done a long time. Because we've been involved and to see how much you're doing. I appreciate that.
Yeah.
I can't encourage you enough if you get a chance to stop by, because to see it live and what it happens is nothing that you've ever seen before. And there are very few high school librarians that do this in our state. So to be on the cutting edge, to be talking to colleges about what our kids need, and then
wonderful.
tailoring what they need and bringing it in is extraordinary. And then again, to share all that so that we can make a secure alignment for all our students as they come in. So, really exciting.
Great.
Bravo.
Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you.
Thank you for coming.
Thanks for having us. Just let that drop.
Okay. Next on our agenda is our annual achievement report. Our Director of Curriculum, Christine Hessler, is here to present in 1 moment. Thank you, by the way, for compiling this great notebook.
Oh, you're welcome.
This is great, and before you leave, a big thank you to our librarians, and you know what, there are some underappreciated folks, and I think you guys fall in that bucket. But we appreciate you.
Thanks for your time.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye.
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 Okay. I don't have a video, but I'm gonna have to just get plugged in here for a second. So, Terry has the link to the slideshow that I'm going to share with you tonight, and she's going to push that out first thing in the morning. So, as you know, the annual report, we usually have a little bit in the fall. We waited a little bit this year due to trying to get some scores back. We have some, but not fully, and I'll explain that when I get to that piece. But for community watching, this is an annual report that we do each year that covers a number of things. And in fact, this year it's in a notebook form for you. So you will see there are multiple layers of this report. It will also be posted online as a PDF if anyone in the community would like to have their own copy of all these different pieces. It is lofty. I'm going to summarize some of the pieces, take any questions that you have, and if you have questions that I can't answer tonight, I will of course come back and answer those pieces after. But we kept the traditional look of what we usually do, because again, this report is to also help us see some trends. So the goal of this report, when this was created by Mr. Howell, who's in the room tonight, is to share an update with the school board and community of our schools in regards to demographics, student learning, and building goals. Things have been tweaked along the way, depending on what we've been asked to do from different levels, but it can be the same. And again, the report will be found on our website at rsu14.org. Under the departments, there's curriculum and assessment, and you can click on the annual achievement report. You'll also see prior years there as well, if you are interested to go back at all. So the full report, which you have in your hands tonight, there is an introduction, a review of our mission and vision, the demographics, some resources, our student learning objectives, and then there are supplemental reports in there. So lots of chunks tonight, so I apologize for the length of it. But our mission in RSU 14, which we redid last year, and you've heard a lot about that this year, is that we ensure success for all learners, for our students. That's our guiding piece that we try to live by. Our vision is that every student in the Wyndham-Raymond schools is actively engaged in authentic, individualized, and personally relevant learning all the way through here. We talk about the technology-rich environments, no longer defined by traditional boundaries. We just heard from the librarians. Our students are learning in so many different ways. And the ladies actually keep up with that. They listen to students. Students will share with them what they're seeing. So we're trying to do that with all of our staff. It's an amazing, fast-paced world right now for children. So we also have long-term goals, which I know you've had multiple committees come forward, but just as a reminder for community, we have goal 1 is design for learning. That talks about our authentic, personalized pathways for students. Environment for learning. What is the best environment that supports balance and quality of life for all members of our learning community? And technology for learning. We want to be proficient users of technology and have consistent and equitable access. Again, that use of technology has now changed the way we do work at the libraries. I mean, when we look at a librarian position now, it really is a librarian/tech person. That's the wave of our future that we need to ensure. So our first section is demographics, and there was a little bit of movement on the estimates that we have. So we're up a little bit in Raymond and up a little bit in Wyndham. Nothing here really has seemed to change. This graph is a hard one to do because sometimes we get updates on towns and state and places, and sometimes we don't. So this is the most current I try to do with this piece. I also was able to update the median household income and the poverty levels in each of the towns. And again, these are cited at 2015. That is the latest information that they have for us on here. So not a big change in the demographics of our two communities. School enrollments, in your book, and if you are following along at home, this is the graph that you will see. And I used Wyndham High School as an example. There is one for each of the schools. This will be able to show you a 10 to 11-year trend, each of the schools. You'll see some growth, some down, but this will give you, if you're interested in a certain school and you want to see the overall trend of a school, this supplement part in here will give you that. But in a nutshell, our trends are split. We have 3 schools down in enrollment and 3 schools up in enrollment. And then you know when they move from one school to the other, we get the bump up, the bump down. So the X factor is always that kindergarten group coming in. We start, knocking on doors and rattling windows about getting our kindergartners up to school. But WPS, Jordan Small Middle, and WHS are down a little bit compared to last year. RES, Wyndham Middle, and Manchester are both up this year. So again, you see that as we come to budget time with moving a teacher or adding a piece here and there. But those are our trends, and you can go to each of those graphs to see those pieces. So another piece we look at is economically disadvantaged. So Jeannie Riley provides us with our October counts. And right now we have 35% free and reduced lunch in our schools. And here's the breakdown. We are down. Last year at this time we were 36.1 in 2015, and this year we're a little bit down. So you can see the breakdown of each of the schools in that area. So not too much fluctuation in there. We were going up a little, we've actually come down a little. So in that piece. Students with special needs, this is October 1 dating from Lisa Garno, that we have 16% of our students have identified disabilities. And here is the breakdown in those categories of students. Lisa said there isn't that much trending here. We get a lot of students who are actually coming in, and she can speak more eloquently to that piece. And then we have students who are leaving. So this is a trend that we're always looking at to see how we support students with disabilities in our district. So this was new, the educational attainment of our staff. 50% of teachers this year in RSU 14 have a master's degree or higher. Compared to 42% of Maine teachers when we asked them to pull that data for us. Last year we were at 46.9 in 2016, and now we're up to 57% of that piece. So in your book there is the pie graph to show the different breakdowns of that piece. I thought at this point you may want to stop looking at graphs on a screen. So, yes?
Excuse me, last report there was a section on highly qualified staff.
Yes.
Can you explain that in relation to your presentation?
Sure. Highly qualified staff is no longer, and it was fallen under No Child Left Behind, which is gone. So we are no longer held accountable to count our highly qualified staff. I can tell you when we hire, we are hiring people who have the proper certification. They are highly qualified pieces, but we no longer need to report that piece. As far as, because that's now it's under ESSA, and that requirement is gone when they wrote the new piece. So, yep. So per pupil cost, I know when we dive into budget, this is, we put this together so you have a one snapshot of it. It's in a different order than you're seeing in your book. But right now for 2015, the operating cost for the Maine average is a little bit over 10,000. What we've done is traditionally have shown these same schools to see where we rank in per pupil cost. On here. So you can see that we are around, last year, our budget came in around $10,797.46 per student of what we're spending. And again, those are the area schools we usually look at. So I think stayed pretty steady, and we had some shifts up above us and around, but these are the numbers when we get down to that part for budget. The next one that I have on here, especially for community to see, these are the 5 areas that we chunk our budget in. We are getting into budget season, and so this is an overall how much of our budget is spent. So 51% of our budget for FY17 was spent on instruction and student supports. The breakdown of that is in your notebook as well, and it will be online. There are so many different categories. We know that the very organized Stacy Webster puts it into play for us, but as we get to budget time and you want to compare, in your book you have, I believe, a 4-year comparison of each of those sections broken down of how much was budgeted for each of those pieces. It's a little hard to look on a screen and decipher all those numbers, but that's why the book is in front of you to refer back to in those pieces. So we put a side-by-side comparison in the same exact order for you so that you can see under instruction and student support, for example, what categories are there and the amount spent for the past 4 years so you can see some trends. So the next section in the report is the student learning indicators. And so we made a little bit of some shifts this year in K-8 assessments. So if you're looking at, we talk a lot about how much we assess students. The MEA state assessment is for grades 3 through 8. And it is an assessment that is ELA, math, and writing, and the testing window is spring 2017. It will actually be here before we know it, mid-March already. NWEA is back. I know that was a board favorite a few years ago, and just so people understand, when Smarter Balanced State Assessment came in, we were promised a formative assessment, an NWEA assessment for free that we could use. And so RSU 14, like many schools, stopped doing it because we weren't going to spend the money when we were going to have one for free. Well, it never came to fruition. We never received it. So we had stopped NWEA. We've now put it back in because we want to start showing trends of NWEA. So we have our own internal data that is consistent and reliable, more than the state assessment, which I'll get to in just a little bit. But the NWEA is back. All students in grades 3 through 8 did a fall benchmarking period. And I'll dive a little bit more into that when we get there. We also have Ames Web as a universal screener for students. We are using that only in K2. They are quick screens for students, number sounds, letter recognition. It gives us a pulse of where students are. Those are done in the fall, winter, and spring by classroom teachers. And we do both those in areas of ELA and for math. Our standards-based teachers at the school, if they need to use a measure, if they look at an NWEA score and they find a student needs intervention and they need another measure, they are welcome to grab an Ames Web probe, but we're not requiring that all students have all those probes all the time. So, oop, I don't know what happened. Hang on. Come on. Here we go. In K to 8, we also have the DRA2, which is a reading assessment. That is in K through 5. That measures reading fluency and comprehension. And those are given year-long when students are needed and when they're ready for the next piece of instruction. And then the MEA Science, which is given by the state. That is only in grades 5 through 8, and that is given in the spring of 2017. In 9 through 12, we have added the NWA back in 9th grade. I got the phone call this fall saying, is it really possible? Because we love that, because we drill down, so we put the NWA back in at grade 9. Math and ELA teachers are ecstatic about that information. We also give in 9th grade the 8-9 PSAT in ELA, math, and writing, and that's given in the fall. So this helps us determine things that students are going to need as they make their way up to the PSAT in grade 10, and then eventually the SAT, or the main high school student assessment, as third year high school students, traditionally our 11th grade. Also, the MEA for science is given in 11th grade as well, and that's again in the spring of 2017. So science is 5, 8, and 11. Those are all paper pencil tests still. Those are given in short windows. So as we move through this, we're going to start with NWEA. It is called the Measures of Academic Progress, or MAP. And I'm just reviewing these pieces because it's been a few years since we've used them, just to hopefully help you understand. This assessment's given in the fall and then again in the spring. It is taken on a computer and is adaptive. It adjusts to each student's learning level. If they have some questions that they are getting correct, it bumps them up. If they get some incorrect, it bumps them down, so that it's continuously adjusting so that each score is very much individualized for students. So from these assessments, teachers learn about strengths and struggles in specific areas of math and reading. It breaks it down into the areas like computation or geometry or number operations. It takes it down to another granular level, which is great to focus on. So teachers can see the progress of individual students and their class as a whole. We can also look by school to see how they do that. It's also a tool for monitoring progress over time. So when our students take this in the spring, we will be able to see how many students met their expected growth target, how many students grew to the next level. So it's a way to follow and track your students' progress. And like it says, teacher and parents can follow those academic progressions as well, or whether or not students meet their expected growth during the school year and from year to year. So those scores become theirs, and then we watch for growth each time that they go through. So pretty in-depth. They've also added in NWEA some really neat features for teachers. So if I'm a math teacher and I have a student who has a 230 in geometry, and that is a really high score for this grade level, they can actually go on and click. They actually have a menu. So if I'm in the range of 230, a student can click on it, takes them automatically to Khan Academy, and gives them little videos and examples of practice problems in their level of instruction. So, and if you're not sure how to do the problem, it says, need help? Watch this little video, and it will give the kid instruction. So right there, they can have a practice time for math that is zeroed into the exact level of writ band, their score level that they're on. And so that's brand new that they've done that has been really helpful for some of our teachers and for kids who want to practice at home. Some kids get really excited about making their growth points and they want to do some extra practice. It set it up for them pretty easily, which is nice. So here are our scores out of the gate, the fall NWEA, and this shows these three are grades 3, 4, and 5. So in Raymond Elementary, 70% of our students were average or above average in their RIT band, their RIT scores that the NWEA sets for mathematics, and 66% of them are reading. So again, if you think of each student having their own individualized plan, their individual report has all the breakdown of those pieces. So Wyndham Primary, we have 66 in mathematics and 67 in reading. So you can follow each of these pieces, and then what we do in the spring is we will put next to it, what is that percentage in the spring as the students have their expected growth pieces. But again, with NWEA, the time factor for them to do it doesn't change, the setup doesn't change, it's a very easy, it's something that we can instruct to. We get information to say, student A needs to work on developing this skill. You can then instruct that skill, and then when they take it again, they're going to see that skill, which is very different than some of the state tests we have to take. So in grades 6 through 9, we have the same grid. You'll see each of the 6th grade schools, 7th grade, where we are, 8th grade, and then at the high school, where our students fall. So as a parent, when I get this from my kiddos, it's great. I've tracked them since they started their pieces. They know their score. They know exactly, I can open up the report and see what are the areas, what's the area you want to maybe work on, or what area, boy, you worked really hard, you knocked it out of the park this time. That's great learning. And so it can be used as a great conversation at home as well. So, and actually what's kind of neat about NWEA, the minute they finish, the number flashes in the middle. Like it tells them the score right away. And students know what score they want to get. They want to know, I got this last time and I want to get 4 growth points. So it's kind of neat to see kids really working hard on this assessment. And I think because it means something to them, their teachers touching base with them about it. It's used as an instructional tool.
Christine?
Yes.
I have a question for you as far as this goes. The numbers when it comes to Raymond Elementary to Jordan Small Middle School on the reading category, they're not jiving with me, and I was just curious if there was something up with the data. In 4th grade, the reading level goes from 71%, and then the very next grade level, it drops down to 59%, and then it gradually climbs up to 87% by the time the kids get to 8th grade.
This isn't, they haven't trended yet. So this is the first time we've taken those scores. So and I'm not going to speak for Andy, but if I look at that pocket out of the gate, I'm saying, okay, where's a group we got to look at? There's a 59%. Okay, what do we know about that group cohort of students, and do they have the supports in place? So that's how our administrators use that data as well, to say, okay, let's take a dive in there and see what's going on. What is the makeup of the classroom? Pieces like that. And again, I think, these guys are here to answer those parts. But any point data that we get, our administrators take that data, they take a look at it and say, what's going on? They can drill down to see the actual students. Do those students, for example, have an IEP? Do they have a 504? Was there a death in a family or something? When you look at Jordan Small, the smaller population, there are some things that can off kilter a piece. So they are more in tune to their students and know who they are, to know, is that a valid score? Do we need to put something more in place? They use it to then look at programming for kiddos.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
It does.
Okay.
Thank you.
You're welcome. So then we get to the main state assessment, the MEA, that's coming up again. So I have a couple of things that I want to prioritize as we go through this, because I received information as of yesterday as well, so I'll share with you. So our state assessment, for those who are not familiar with it, is known as the Maine Educational Assessment. It's to show the progress of Maine students towards the content standards adopted by Maine students. The content standards that have been adopted by Maine are the Common Core. The MEA includes required assessments in math, English language arts, literacy, science, and English language proficiency. Both state and federal law requires that all students participate in state assessments in designated content areas at designated grades. Schools, district, and states are accountable for achieving a minimum participation rate of 95%. So each year, as we get to this time, Mr. Prince and I will be sending out a letter to family and a brochure talking about the state assessment, what our requirements are as an RSU, how we use the data, all of the information, but I wanted it here clear as well, as we have some mandates that are put down on us that we need to bring public into our community. So for generally, the MEA for this year will remain the same as those administered last year with a few minor but important improvements. They call improvements. 3 to 8 will be delivered online just like last year. So for at least one more year, we know what the test looks like, how to navigate it online. Remember, we went from Smarter Balance, which was totally different from NECAP, to this new Empower, which had some issues that we had to it, but again, computer-based. So next year, at least, we're not changing platforms, which is a bonus.
Christine?
Yes.
Being a huge fan of NWA,
Mm-hmm.
because I love the fact that not only could you have a snapshot within the year, which is helpful for parents, students, and the teacher, but you could really track trends. And my question for you is, and this is valuable data, how do you determine a trend? Like when I'm looking at, and I'm not picking on you, but I'm just looking at RES, and I'm looking at 42%, third grade, 42% in math.
Mm-hmm.
So next year, I would look at fourth grade.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Right? So where would I find those trends? Because I'm interested in seeing the growth by grade.
Yeah. Kate, I hate to tell you this, but we can't look at a trend right now. We don't have any data. They've already said to us, this MEA scores that you're going to see tonight cannot be compared to the ones from SBAC, which cannot be compared to the ones before. As a curriculum leader in the state, we have expressed our outrage in this system because, again, we're looking for trends to help students. The best that we can do, as our administrator team does, is to take what is given to us, our student reports, and drill down to see where are the areas we did well and where are the areas that we're falling down on. We don't have that information as of yet, still, and we're about to start a new test. So these guys are here chomping at the bit as well to know where do we need to help our students, and yet we're not given that information right now. Our student reports are not going to be ready, we're being told, the end of January, so that we can send them home to parents. So I mean, from my own personal, as a parent, I'm outraged to know that my child took all this time to take it, and I don't have anything in front of me to share with them. Consequently, we do not have information as a school or a classroom to find out what are the things we need to work on because it's not being given to us. So I hate that I have to give you that answer, Kate.
I don't like it.
I don't like it either, but this is...
How about we look at this with an open mind and a big grain of salt? Like,
Right.
I feel like we all want to see it, but we don't have a firm enough grounding in this assessment to totally trust it either. So I think we compare it to the NWA, we compare it to our common assessments.
Yep.
We compare it to what we see, and I think this is sort of our baseline for this test, and as long as they keep it more than 1 year, we will learn more how to use it.
You know, the difficulty for this is, as large as our budget is, you know, you want to be able to make a case that we're making gains.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know how you do that.
If I could actually
Oh,
talk
come
to
on.
that for a second.
See, he misses this report.
Oh, he's just such a big talker. He has to get up there.
No, because if I could give some historical perspective on this, and actually I think this is helpful for the public and even helpful for the board. One of the reasons as a district we chose to go to NWEA back, and I didn't touch a thing, back a few years ago, and it would have been 2007, 2008, is at that time state testing was going through a number of iterations, and we didn't have a constant data set. In fact, I think we went through 2 or 3 data sets where we were told time after time that you couldn't compare. So we picked NWA because it was great, because you gave the same test every fall, every spring, and we were able to create some data trends. And the percentage points that you see up there are the percentage of kids above the 50th percentile as compared to their peers. We were able to show growth over time and really able to track growth over time. And so something I'd be interested to see is taking some of our old NWA data sets and just seeing where it is that we're falling in comparison, because those RIT bands, there have been a few changes as far as the norming goes, but it would be interesting to see kind of where we're falling along with those trends, because it was a constant set of data that we had at a time, again, where assessments were changing. Obviously for K-8, assessments are changing. High school SAT is still the SAT. Some cut scores have changed this year, but I think it's a good move by Christine and the district to say, you know, what's that constant data set again, so that we can actually look at performance and see, are we continuing to show growth? Are we staying flat? And what areas do we really need to focus in on for continuous improvement?
Well, strategically as a district, it seems like, and I'm not one to spend money needlessly, but if the state and all of these assessments are so precarious, let's please stick with the NWA or something.
Yeah. We said, could we use NWA as our state test, and we were
Make a decision
told no.
as a district. What can we use? Continually, regardless of what the state says, because that's what I'm interested in. This yearly snapshot is important,
Yep.
but I'm not getting any trends.
Right. I agree with you, Kate. That's why we put this back in, and this will be here, because this is important for us.
Thank you.
It is important to note too, though, and Chris referred to it, the NWAs have been renormed, I think it was 2 years ago, I want to say. And so that does, even when you're looking at the trends, because at primary we have actually had it in place since 2012. And you can see some changes in trends once the new norming took place. So you just have to keep that in mind. Another benefit of the NWA that hasn't been shared, but once again, it's the fault of the state. You could kind of predict how kids are going to do on the NWAs, because the NWA test association did a really good job of aligning their test with like the MEAs from an ECAT from 3-4 years ago.
Yeah.
All right. And that was really helpful, because we kind of say, okay, where are we? What might we need to do by looking at our NWA data to get our kids ready for the test? But now it's blind. You don't have that. You don't have that almost like pre-assessment to give you an indication of how kids are going to do on it. So you really don't have that opportunity to do that, which was a nice feature of the NWA at the time.
One of the concerns I have about the MEAs is that the MEAs are what are published.
Right.
And the NWEAs are not. And that doesn't give an accurate picture of what our students can do.
Right.
Eric?
Yeah.
A question for whoever. Is it too much of a task for us to develop our own for our own growth? Not one that, yes, you got to do whatever the state does, and no, I don't want to over-test kids, but why couldn't we develop our own so that we could look at it year after year after year and have that data?
We can do this. We're going to start this right now. As Chris said, we can pull our old NWA scores that Chris used to share with you in those trend pieces, but from now, you're going to have.
Well, I get it. Would be anything you did would be going forward. I get that.
Right.
I get that. But why would them changing so much and not being able to depend on them for our own growth? Why wouldn't we just have something in place that? And maybe it's impossible. I'm not.
We can't use NWA for accountability. We have to do the MW
for the state.
MEA, yes, for the state. But
for
you as a
our own
board
growth.
here, you could say, Christine, thank you for the snapshot. Can we dive more into NWA for this report? But this is something our students take. We need to share with you as our board and community. But again, I think I remember, Eric, there were a year or two ago, you said to me, so you look at the scores, you figure out what you need to do, and you put it in place. And I said, that kind of encapsulated, like, you're right. This is what we have in front of us. This is what we can do to help our students, and then we hope to improve on that piece.
Right.
But that's,
I hear the frustrating part, if you're not getting consistent, if they're all, I've seen that, and it's like, wow. So that's why I'm saying if we developed our own, we didn't rely on them just for internal growth. So that we had those consistent numbers going across. Every year we can say, okay, here's the problem with,
correct. I think you'd have 5 very happy people right over here. I've decided.
If we developed our own, then you can't compare it nationally.
Right.
You can't compare it
Are there companies though that make it?
I think NWA is
That's the other cat down.
NWA is actually the state test in a few places. because it's that solid and normed, and they've put, like Kyle said, they've put the resources, the time, and they actually give you, when I taught we at NWA, I could look and it would give me examples or instruction to help my students. I mean, what a gift to a teacher.
Yeah.
You know, it's just not, here's the score, good luck next time. Here's the score, and here's the next step your student needs to do to get to the next, you know, level that they need to get to. So it truly is one of those instructional tools, where this snapshot, unfortunately, is not. And we have voiced our concern very loudly. I had a call up there today that they couldn't answer my question, unfortunately, because I was trying to get to you the most important relevant information that I have. And I think Marge says it very eloquently, that today the DOE says this and tomorrow we may have a different set of answers, but this is what we have to work with right now.
You guys talked to Mr. McClellan, I'm sure. The rep from,
It wouldn't be Mr. McClellan.
no, it's not.
Thank goodness, it's just Faye.
Yeah. This is a frustration
I meant
all
as far
over the
as they
state.
can
When I meet with Southern Maine curriculum leaders, or, you know, the you know, Maine Curriculum Leaders Association across the state, this is just a very hard thing that we have to do. I have to go in a few weeks to sit through their 3-hour presentation of how to give the next one, and I pray that there isn't much difference, because then I have to turn around to these guys and say, here's what we need to do to get ready. So.
We have the NWAs 3 through 9th grade.
Yes.
And I think if we used it internally, I think there's a big benefit there. One is we know how our students are doing, whether we compare them to it doesn't matter.
Yeah.
We know we're getting better.
Right.
So how do we compare to somebody else? It's kind of like, well, if they can decide to do something that's consistent, that's fine. But if not, it also gives us, insight as to, okay, how are they transitioning? You know what I mean? Because I think you've covered all of the transitions when you go from grade 3, because then they leave his school
Right.
and they go to your school, and when all the way through 9th, and when they leave the middle school and they've gone into high school. So I think there's some help there also.
I agree.
So I think we just have to make an exerted effort to keep it, though. I mean, when everybody says we're not doing that anymore, you know, we have to say, well, that's fine, you tell us what else, but we're keeping this.
Right.
The other
Bottom line.
point too, administration of it is a completely different ballgame than the MEA. There's not a lot of teacher anxiety. It's a test that most kids can finish within an hour. It can be paused one day and continue the next day. So there's a lot of benefits to that, and I think it's a lower stress level on kids. Less anxiety for students and less anxiety for teachers to begin with. And
yeah. Okay.
I can feel your frustration and so I just want to take a minute to let you know, as a parent, I have 4 kids in the schools. And we have the conversation in our own house, and I've had it, and I do it every year when I sit down for parent-teacher conferences. You know, what you give me when you give me the MEAs, or when you give me these, I know that's just a snapshot. And I know how hard you guys are working and the frustration that's back there, and it's appreciated. And so in our house, it's never, you know, MEAs, or you better sit down and get those done, and we're not doing anything else. It's just a day for you. You're just gonna get through it. It's just a day. But what matters is, you know, when I sit down with the teachers and when I see the administration, and those are the people that know our kids. And I know my teachers are gonna call and say, you know, Anna, daughter A is having trouble with.
Right.
So we appreciate, I know there's frustration there, and I appreciate the effort and the time that you put into it, and the energy and the care that's there.
Thank you.
So
we literally, I can speak for our team, it's gut-wrenching when we have to do this, because we want to be represented well. Our students work so hard, our teachers work so hard. You know, they get Drew is right. They get stressed out. They are afraid. If my kids don't look good, I'm like, stop. I'll say, we stand in front of the board, not you. I don't want you to feel that frustration. Do what you do. Do the magic you do with kids. You're always looking to improve. That's the most important piece.
And if we ever get to a point as a board where we say, we're failing terribly based on this one test score, then I hope somebody calls us on it, because we know that there's a much bigger picture there than one test given one day. Or 4 days sometimes.
Yeah, a week and a half.
However long.
Yeah. As a mom, I look at how did my girls do here, but what is their teacher saying, and what's their NWA saying, and I triangulate it. Like, is this a good picture or not? And to listen to your children speak about it is share.
And kids pick up when, and everybody else is stressed about trying to,
I
what was
know.
the one we just did, when we did it by computer, that had to have those guys support it, was just last year?
That was, last March, that was us.
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
But I know William picked up on that, everybody was
Yeah.
tense on that, so
Yeah,
it's.
and especially for it's hard.
It's a really good point, Eric, because I believe our teachers did the best job they could to
Absolutely.
prepare kids for this. But the rules and the directions and the guidelines change so many times in
Oh
the
my God.
course of a short amount of time. There is no way humanly possible that someone could keep up with it,
Yeah.
and then have the kids not feel that that they knew things were unsettled.
Yeah.
And I remember a teacher, she took a picture. It was like 15 minutes into a test, and the kid got bumped off.
Yeah.
And she took a picture of him. You could just see the frustration, as he slumped in his chair, waiting for the computer to reboot. We couldn't get ahead of those things because, that it wasn't necessarily the technology's at fault, but it was like you didn't have the necessary guidelines and procedures. So when something happened like that, what do you actually do?
There was
to
no
solve it quickly?
forgiveness, once you were bumped out, you were bumped out.
Yeah. So.
And these are the people who are running around when I get an email at 12:30, a.m. that says, there's a glitch in this system, your teachers will need to log off and on, and I, to then have to send that to this team is just a
I
horrible
was on
piece.
the technology committee,
Yeah.
I think Julie is from your,
Yes.
I heard some of the stories from all of the, so,
Right.
yes.
So the reality is we use radios for crisis in our building. We have a lot of people who wear radios, and we were using radios to get people to the rooms where kids were testing because of the issues going on computer-wise. So think about that. Is that an environment where kids are going to be able to perform their best?
Yeah.
And it wasn't people weren't trying to trying to be as responsive as possible, but that's not what we hope to do. And we're hoping this year we'll get more information sooner than we can be responsive.
Well, yeah, we could hope.
We can hope.
So, would you like continue just this quick snapshot? So there are a couple of changes. The high school has now been redesigned. Chris and I went to St. Joe's last week and heard of some of the new pieces of the SAT. It is still staying paper pencil. It is going to be given on April 5th this year to all third-year students. High school, new cut scores, which we have some graphs that we'll fill in as well. The MEA access for ELL students is going on right now. Those are paper pencil for kindergarten, and they're starting to do some online for grades 1 and 2. Lisa is overseeing our students who are taking that piece. There's no changes for the MEA for science, and the test delivery will change somewhat for the alternative MEA for students, which actually is a huge step forward because it takes a step forward towards adaptive administration. So the students that really need those accommodations are actually going to get to use them for that piece. This is brand new. This is 24 hours old. The change this year in the spring is reading and writing used to be in one test session, which made it extremely long. So now writing will be separated from the reading section, and it will be a separate test and cover the topics that you see below for each grade level, which for us feeds in beautifully for the work we've been doing with the units of study in writing. So students will know what type of writing they're going to be asked to do on this assessment. And again, the disclaimer on the bottom, which we were told yesterday, is you will not be able to compare these writing scores this year to the ones that are. That's very helpful. So yeah, we'll just move. But the writing the changes were made based on teacher feedback. People were extremely vocal. The change will avoid the length of reading section and easier transition for students. I mean, that I think at the lower, that was just a huge component. The passages that students need to reference for their writing, so they read a passage and then they write about it, will be shorter because of copyright. They don't have to have the entire article. And the last one is something that I was really thrilled to see. At those passages that students need to read in order to write can be read aloud to students who need that because they're not being tested on reading, they're being tested on writing. For those students that need text-to-speech or a read-aloud person, they are finally going to let that happen. They did not in the past. So I'm hopeful that they're listening to feedback and they're making some necessary changes, not all, but I felt this at least was a positive. So the MEA results, again, cannot be compared. And there is a public site that I believe I sent you that link earlier this year, but again, for public, if you wanted to see that site, you can come on here. There are quick reports, there are interactive reports. These are our scores that we came out of the box with for this year. It's separated by school. It also is separated by our state average and then our RSU average, and this is where we begin the process of looking at these pieces. Again, every administrator is here tonight because they've looked at their scores. We cannot drill down. So if you're listening, community, I cannot tell you, at Raymond Elementary in mathematics, those 42%, what are the questions our students had trouble with? I'm hearing an ugly rumor that they're not going to release the item analysis to us this year. So that was my call today that no one could answer. So I don't know if I'm ever going to be able to say to them, you can now see the item analysis. They are contending that this is the first year of this new data system and it takes time to build. So we're gonna just move on. These are our MEA scores for grades 6 through 8. Same thing, there is a state score. I tried to keep it consistent so that the charts would read the same. You could see our state and also the number of students that took this compared to the RSU compared to the school pieces.
Christina, is there something going on with math?
I don't know, Kate, until I can drill down. These are the ones that surprised me a little, that we are anxious to drill down in.
I'm anxious too.
So, Randy, you got the mic.
Well, I don't know the answer, but I looked at the released items, which is one thing the state has done, is released certain types of questions that were used last year that won't be used this year. And I would say that, at least the grade levels I looked at, the math questions are multi-step, and they're more along the lines of problem solving.
Ugh.
So even if you can do the computation, if you don't know where to start with the problem as a student, you don't know what formula to plug in, you're kind of flying blind. So we need to start looking at prepping for the test through a different skill set. And that's just very preliminary, just looking at released items, of which there are probably, 6 per grade level or something?
There are 6 per grade, and Randy's correct. The released items are ones of item types that will not be on this next test. So do you kill and drill to do that, and then they don't appear next time? So until we can get that, I know, Kate, drill down to that level of where we fall, we don't know, and we're scrambling because this is important to us, but we don't have all our tools in place. So.
And if you look at the math NWAs, you see a much stronger pattern,
Well,
but they have it's a
whether
different type of test.
Right, whether there was a dramatic shift in the question or the format or whatever, because those are.
Right. And some of them were multi-layered, so there was a box you had to put in one part of the answer, and then there was another box to put another part of an answer. So if students are not filling in the right way, I mean, until we are given more information, we don't know. But I'll tell you, it's one of the things that's blinking in our heads constantly.
And students are asked to explain their thinking after they solve the problem. So that's partly a writing assessment in a way of, can you explain how you got the answer, which you would not encounter that on the NWA because you pick the answer and you move on.
Right. Thank you.
Eric?
Real quickly, I think this could be a lot of confusion based on what we've talked about, but I think one of the comfortable things as a parent and having a child that's been in there now 8 years, the teachers that I deal with, I feel are very confident and know what's going on with each child. And I think Anna kind of said that, they know the kids, and so, I always have a comfort level that they know where William is and what he's got to work on, regardless of what the test score says. So that's a good comfort piece to have.
I also think with math in general, since Common Core standards have come along and we've been realigning our curriculum to meet the Common Core standards, there's a little bit of a wake-up call in terms of math. And I know this is true when I'm helping my kids at home with math. They're doing things in 5th grade that I promise you I didn't even do in pre-algebra. So, we'll see over time what happens. Because like Kyle said, we knew before that the NWEA had a predicted reliability that if you met the NWEA standard, you had a 40% chance of meeting the state test. And now we don't know that anymore. Right. So, time will tell. But I think math is just really harder than we all thought it was. It's changed. So that's probably part of it.
Thank you.
So again, we've already kind of talked about our school plans. In your notebook, I also asked them, they did a little write-up for you about how they plan to share this with staff, instructional pieces. They also wanted to be here to answer any questions you might have on it. But again, I think you even said it more eloquently than I could. You know that we're working and trying to figure this out. That, you know, yes, it has to be attended to, but we have to really put it in perspective for what we do. And again, the individual student reports to share with parents, the timeline now is at the end of January. We started that timeline at the end of November, and then it was bumped to the end of December. So now we're at January. Again, I think I go in 2 weeks with Mr. Hikita here, you know, the next piece, and that'll be one of the questions that I will corner and be a pain about. But that's the information I'm given at this date. And again, my call was not being able to be answered today. So there are released items, as Randy shared with you. If anybody would like to go online, this link is live for tomorrow. You can also go on the DOE site, but it gives you the questions, not very many at each grade level, but you can take a look and see what those pieces are. It's pretty interesting when you get in there, especially to know the expectations. So we can move on to the main high school assessment. It's the state measure of learning progresses towards the state standards, also known as the SAT. And so Mr. Howell and the team up there take a look at SATs each year. We are above the state in our reading, a little bit below in math. And we also break the SAT down for you a little bit more. So this was a couple of charts that we were actually able to keep consistent for you. We do have some class profiles here that we were able to fit in. So you can see that we are up from last year in some of the areas, which is really encouraging. Remember, we did have the SBAC year where a lot of our students, I'm sorry, Chris, was it 2015? We had a lot of students who opted out. If you remember back to that area, they were asking students to take the main high school assessment, plus the SAT, plus their AP exam, plus the MEA for science that spring, and many of our students chose to opt out at the high school and not take. It was not the SAT that year. The SAT has been brought back as the state assessment for high school, thank goodness. It had been a separate test, which, you know, caused anyone who owned a child at that grade level to pull their hair out. And I vividly remember Mr. Howell taking the time to have those hard conversations with students who just said, I need to opt out, I can't do this, and you need to do what's best for you. You need to do really well on those AP exams, or I don't want to take class time out and take this test and miss my AP class that I'm going to take a test on, which could mean credits for college.
Right.
So I think, you know, kudos to him. He spoke to every parent along the way. So.
Can I just add a new piece for the board this year, and it's a new part for us for SAT. In the past, the cut scores for proficiency were based upon main state standards and proficiency in main state standards. This year, the College Board has now set new cut scores, and the cut score is based upon students. So if you're proficient in the SAT in math and proficient in the SAT in reading, basically it's saying that there's a 95% chance that you will be successful in a college level, first year college level course. So proficiency is that you will pass that introductory math course, whether it be a college algebra or whatever your first college math course is. Mm-hmm. And then the other one would be your introductory college reading course. And the state has now decided that they will also use those same cut scores for determining state proficiency. So it used to be based on proficiency on state standards, and typically we're looking at about a 500 was college ready. Now they're saying 540 is college ready. So one part that we're looking for, and it's a great tool that we get, and I know Christine gave you some tool pieces. It's a report called the Summary of Answers and Skills, and basically gives us question by question how our students did. And so it gives us an idea to see where there might be some weaknesses in the curriculum. The other thing it does, which I really appreciate, is students who across the country would fall into our same demographic band. It gives us where our school fell in relationship to those, so we get an idea of what are the issues that are relevant, which are truly curriculum issues, and which might be a demographic issue in what we're dealing with. And Christine is correct. Typically, we used to get those results back in August. To date, we've gotten student scores because obviously we're using them for transcripts and other things for kids going off to school, but we don't have those overall aggregated scores to see, what are some of the trends in other parts that are impacting our students. So we're hopeful that we'll see some of those parts soon. Typically, though, what we look for, though, is we're looking at trying to maintain at least state average or better as a goal for where we fall, and where we're taking a look at where our curriculum is landing. Another part in our data this year, we have some students that are appearing in our data that didn't actually attend Wyndham High School. So
That was fun.
Were they a plus or a minus?
How well did they do?
we don't know, and we're trying to figure out who they are, and it's actually it's kids associated with who are enrolled at the real school, but we're from other towns who an additional 20 students are showing up in our participation data.
Right.
Which never actually have attended the high school. So we're trying to pull some of those pieces out, but again, that summary of answers and skills is one of the best reports that we get. It's a super helpful tool. It's a quick read and really allows us to be able to pinpoint some things. But I will just publicly voice again my support for the SAT, for our students who might have an economic barrier. It's $55 that their parents don't have to spend for them to be able to take that test. And for some kids, that might be a gateway for them to look at some sort of training beyond Wyndham High School.
Chris, where did you say the summary of answers and skills was?
It's actually a report we get back from College Board.
And can we?
You can actually, send you a copy when we receive it.
Okay.
And it gives us kind of an item analysis, question by question, and it gives us in a graphic format. So we can see, for instance, on a particular type of question to particular type of response, how our kids did in comparison.
Right.
And we always celebrate the really good stuff. Here's a point where our kids are scoring way beyond, and then we take a particular close look. Is there one area in skills that our kids aren't doing so well? So that SOAS report, love to share it as soon as we get it.
I'd like to see it.
We just don't know when.
Yeah.
So MEA for science, we're nearing the end, I promise you here. But again, these are our fifth graders, paper pencil test, science. Kids usually like this one. It's really interesting. It's got graphics, pictures, pieces like that. It's not a long, drawn-out piece. But we are required to have students take this in grades 5, 8, and third year of high school again. And so here is our breakdown of our schools. Here is our 8th grade breakdown here. It's amazing that all three, 71, 71, all the way across the board.
They love science.
They love science. We don't, again, you see blanks because up until last night I was still texting Chris, did you find them? Because I don't have them either. Our mean scores for the essay for the science piece. So
1140.
you bought it?
I found them tonight.
Oh my. See? Okay, well, 1140 and state?
State was 1140.
1140, there we go. So if you could pencil that in, and I will make the adjustment here. See what I have to deal with all the time? SAT released questions. This has also just been posted, so if you were inclined or you would like to see what the SAT is asking our students, you can go on there and see the question booklet for that piece from last year. Could be a great afternoon if you felt you wanted to do that work. Participation rates, Chris spoke about. We are well above, except for Wyndham High School. And again, we know that there is a glitch because we have children. We're like, I don't know who that is. Do you know who that is? Conversations and trying to get that rectified with the state. But this is where we are. Our students participated. This is another thing. As I do the title reports application, I have to share with them our participation rates, and I also have to share if we are below a 95, what is the information that we've sent home to parents and community. So I upload those pieces, and I have to show evidence that we are bringing that forward. Graduation rates. Last year, or 2015, we were at 90%. We are above the state average, and we're also above the national average. In fact, Maine ranks 12th highest in the nation on high school graduation rates.
This is remarkable.
Which is really nice.
From year 2000 to now is fantastic.
Yeah.
I think that would probably be a little bit higher if they there was a little bit of leeway as to who you got to count in that.
Well, that might be there
Yeah.
as well. But, I know for me,
true.
I walk around, if I'm at the high school in December, I watch the Jenny Shapiros, the Amy Denekers, every staff, hands on deck, who's gonna make it across that finish line, and Chris pulling his hair out, trying to figure out what do kids need, we want them to graduate, what's the next step? And if they're not ready, then finding a pathway for them to get ready in the next year. We just don't give up on the kids, which is something you don't read about that when you see a data point. And so supplemental reports in your board notebook as well. Each of these administrators reflects on goals, school goals and district goals, where they are. They share accolades at their buildings, which are great to read, but you can individually go through those pieces and, see what Drew has to say about his first year here and the goals he set for a building, and reflect on the district goals as a team as well. So they're all in your packet as well that you can review. And this is a time, if you have any additional questions, myself, the team is here as well. I'm sure they would answer anything, or you could be just really done and sick of me at this point. So.
No, this is probably the most important thing we ever do.
Kate.
So I do.
Okay.
First of all, can you tell me if we have any pilots going on right now?
As in?
Curriculum pilots, Lucy, whatever. Any new thing that we're doing in a particular school?
Yes.
That we should be aware of?
Drew, are you speaking tonight?
Yeah, I have that.
So Drew's going to share, I don't want to share his thunder, but he
okay.
has an amazing pilot that's going on at his school right now. As far as curriculum-wise, I have a small group of teachers checking out some what are called STEM scopes, because as we take our science curriculum and move it down through the grade levels to align, looking at some resources to help our teachers teach science. So we're looking at this piece called STEM scopes, very small pilot. What they want to do is explore it, use it, teach it, and then be able to share with grade levels. This is what we found was really exciting. This gives us really quick resources, because when you're an elementary teacher, you're really focused on literacy and math, and we want to do due diligence to science, but a lot of us don't have that background to teach the science. So how can we get that into our curriculum in a way that teachers can access that knowledge of science and build their own base?
And where is that at?
That's a WPS right now. A small team is doing that piece. Units of study writing is in its second year of implementation, so we're not in that pilot phase. We're working through getting teachers comfortable using that program, providing support through Melissa Bois, who you met earlier in the year. So that is up and running, and
That's
we're working
across
really
the board,
hard. That's
all
across the board,
buildings.
K through 8.
K through
I will
8.
share with you something exciting that isn't in this report, but I think of something that has been extremely valuable is we have had a couple of content areas, math, ELA, social studies, where 8th grade teachers have met with 9th grade teachers. And the conversation has been amazing. They are sharing resources. They are making connections. Our 9th grade ELA teachers at the high school are going to go down and watch the 8th grade teachers teach units of study, because they shared what it's about. They want to see it in action. They are thrilled with the rubrics that come with that piece. They have created these connections where they're asking 8th grade teachers to come over and help score 9th grade work, so that they can understand what does the writing look like at the 9th grade level. And so between math, they're building a common assessment for algebra. So wherever you're taking algebra, whether it be Jordan Small or Wyndham Middle School or at the high school, the midterm looks the same, and they're going to score them together. And then the end result, the end assessment, is the same, so that we can certify that kids who complete algebra at Jordan Small are ready for the next piece. The same thing at Wyndham Middle. And I think Phil Rossetti, Deb McAfee, Chris, Drew, Randy, all of them, when you watch the teachers get together and they say, we haven't done this in 10 years, this is the best thing we've ever done. They are communicating, they have shared folders where they're sharing materials. Hey, have you tried this with the kids? We really want them to come with this. An 8th grade teacher saying, oh, this is awesome. So building the bridge between that transition, we talk a lot about transitions in elementary, but that transition from 8 to 9, and they also shared some of the practices they do in class, and some of our 8th grade teachers want to try some of those in the spring, so that when students leave, you know how this goes when you go to the high school. Not everything is brand new for you. So we are really excited that those connections are happening. They're making plans to revisit again a couple times, and it seems to be a huge piece. If we're going to impact kids and get them ready, you know, that face-to-face contact with those caring adults that are going to take them through has been amazing. So that's been something that I wanted to share as well. So.
I've got a couple more, but I'll email you. But I do have a question for you. KJS Early Literacy Intervention that was reported out in the last report, is that going on now?
The original intervention block is not. There's been a follow-up intervention block since then, yes.
So it's kind of sort of going on.
Still going on.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. All right, thank you.
Thank you.
You all set?
Thanks.
Okay. Thank you, Christine. Okay, next on our agenda, from the Wyndham Middle School is the Principal Drew Patton. Will give us a school update on what is happening there. Boy, you know, all I can say is thank goodness that's working tonight because everybody has used it.
We're not out of the woods yet.
Oh dear.
Don't wiggle it too much.
Yeah, I might have spoke too soon.
Night. Yeah, guys.
Good evening.
Good evening.
I just want to start by saying thank you for the opportunity to talk about the school. In my second year, love the school, love the staff, love the kids, and always appreciate your support and your willingness and interest in what we're doing. Where I left off last year, many of those decisions you were involved in, some of those decisions were staffing based when we talk about an additional music teacher. Some of those changes that have been made are program based, so there are some new programs there. So what we didn't have a chance to do at the end of last year is really talk about the changes that are taking place this year. So I'm going to breeze through things really quickly. And then either stop me as we're going through if you have a question, or at the end if you have questions about things. But in the interest of time, I'll try to read through these pieces. But basically to simplify our goals for the school, one is we thought that reading was extremely important. That I don't want to send any kids on to Chris that aren't at grade level in reading. And also to support the 90% goal, we felt that the school really felt that reading and emphasizing reading and literacy was super important. In addition to that, implementing professional development and project-based learning, really to hit the first goal in terms of design for learning and making sure that kids are involved in relevant, real-life, problem-based applications. And that's something the school had been sort of dabbling in before. The plan will be to implement some professional development and really get everybody involved in that next year. And I think that will come to fruition. So some of that's the work that we've been doing this year. Big, really giant change for us was sort of the structure of what we call our reach block. And that's been changed over to what we call Ignite Reading Block, and I can get into all the details of that. Essentially, what we wanted to do for kids is instill a love for reading, and I didn't write it in there, but also trick them in a way, not in a bad way, but we want them, what happens is when you start to say to kids, we're gonna do reading, right? What happens? They're like, bleh. And then when you start to say, well, now we want you to write about what you read. We want you to do this activity. We want you to make a Venn diagram. Many of the things that we ask kids to do are turnoffs for kids that already love reading. So we want to be cognizant of that, of not killing the passion that kids already have for reading. But in addition, trying to do things in a fun, active, and engaging way so that they don't really know that what they're doing.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Yeah. Yeah.
And that's the idea of it. We want to present it in a way with choice. We want to present it in a way with teacher passion and teacher interest. Because we believe that creates a really great environment for learning. So basically what happens is we had a reach block, which was essentially a study hall that took place 5 days a week. So we took that reach block 4 days a week, and we created this Ignite Reading Block. So what we asked teachers to do is we assigned teachers sort of to this general population of reading teachers, and that's across the board. The reach block is the only time in the day that kids are with everybody. any other point during the school day, there's always staff members that have a prep period by contract and by design. So Reach Block, I have access to really every single staff member, and so there's a lot of efficiency in numbers, and you'll get to see that in a second. So what teachers did is we said, just like anybody in here, what do you have an interest in that you would like to offer a topic or a theme in that you can teach kids about? Make sense? So they pick books, they develop they pick articles that are all related to whatever those themes or topics are. So just some of those outdoor survival, how things work, fantasy, horror, mystery, swimming, running. So you can see it really spans sort of the gamut in terms of what we would hope students would also be interested in. Each grade level right now offers 9 different topics or themes for students to choose from. So in the fall, they did a sign up for that, and they chose, some of them didn't get their first choice. Most of them did. Most of them got their second choice. So at some point, we hope they're exposed to something that they're really interested in over the trimester. They choose a new topic or theme each trimester. Teachers have received and will receive continued professional development in implementing, and sorry, that's not the brightest, basic reading skills, vocabulary, comprehension, phonemic awareness. Part of the challenge is asking teachers to teach reading who have never been asked to teach reading before. So this is a health teacher, perhaps, might be a PE teacher, a science teacher, math teacher, but people that may not have the biggest skill set in actually teaching reading are now being asked to do that. So that requires a lot of professional development in order to be successful. Because of access to all the teachers at this point in time, during the day, the class sizes that these teachers are experiencing for Ignite range between 10 and 15 kids. And that great class sizes. Students that need specialized instruction for IEPs don't necessarily have Ignite. Many of them are working on IEP goals related to reading in the first place, but it also helps us to accommodate kids that need direct instruction based off of 504s or IEPs. So we're able to really fit everybody's need during this time. And then huge benefit for this is we have 6 reading intervention teachers. These are regular teachers that are coined as intervention teachers who have specific professional development that work with students who are below grade level in reading. These are students that are not on IEPs or not on, some can be on 504s.
I have a question, and it says students needing specialized instructions for IEPs do not have Ignite. It seems to me that this would be a great school climate kind of thing. So if you don't have those people participating, how do they feel?
So one of them is you look at what those students I think need the most, and really the IEP drives.
Sure.
It drives what their programming looks like.
Right.
Many of them in Ignite, they're already receiving specialized instruction in reading, so many of those are their goals, but we also look at what's most beneficial to them. I think what we'll find is that there will be some changes in the coming years in terms of how we offer special education services and perhaps offering more access to students depending on how those services are delivered. If we think creatively about when services for executive functioning skills could be delivered, then it might open up the ability to access Ignite. Because I think there are kids in this that are receiving direct instruction at this time that would benefit or would like to be a part of that. Many of them are, and some of those are IEP changes that we can't make just by saying, hey, we're going to change this without your consent.
Sure.
So benefits, really, if you think about it, study hall is now instructional time. So when you look at gaining instructional time, we did that automatically, really about 160 minutes per week if you add up the 40 minutes per day, 4 days a week. With all staff participating, it lowers Ignite class sizes, allows for a coach for professional development. So one of the teachers, Amy Engelberger, is our Ignite coach. She goes around, she gives feedback, she provides every Friday sort of a weekly vocabulary, phonemic awareness tip to help teachers out, and then is in the classroom to help support and help teach lessons with teachers. And then in addition to that, it creates the ability for 6 reading intervention teachers to work with non-special education students at almost zero cost to the district. So when you look at a really efficient model, because we have access to everybody, last year we had 1 intervention teacher, now we have 6 intervention teachers, and without actually increasing the budget. The budget was actually lower this year. And then in addition to that, what we like about it is it does send a message to the school community about the importance of reading, and that's something that we take the time to do every day. Ignite is in the morning. I feel like staff, it's a good way to start with the day. However, there's some drawbacks, and I want to be transparent about those. It's new learning for teachers and more preparation for teachers, so this is something that they did not have to prep for before. Teachers, however, repeat the same topic or theme each trimester. So the largest amount of work in new learning was really in the first trimester. Now they've read the books before, they know the vocabulary items, they know what to expect from students, and they can start to really build the repertoire in terms of activities to try with kids that are fun and engaging. Some might have worked before, some they might not have tried before. And students have less time to complete makeup work. I do feel that for the general student that they might not have done as much homework because they could rely on a study hall in the morning to start the day. And that's been a little bit of a rub. Teachers really like Ignite, but they also like to have team time with kids and the ability to sit down with them and help explain things. So I think most kids might be accessing late nights more often just because there's less time in that day for students to catch up with teachers. Many students, in my opinion though, were not that time was not used instructionally for them. So it was 40 minutes that they might have already had their homework done, and it wasn't used to make any academic gains. So I'm really interested in the data, as you can imagine, when we look at fall to spring NWA scores in reading. Really interested in how that will pan out. And it's delayed some of our professional development. We don't want to add something to a teacher's plate until we really feel like they're doing well with the new learning that we've asked them to do. So the next slides really talk about Ignite intervention, which if you are a parent of a child that is receiving this, I think it's fantastic. The level of instruction, the care for kids, the knowledge that they have, the skill set of the teachers is really phenomenal. So what does that include? Really, Melissa helped me with this, Bois, so give her credit for doing this work and not me. But essentially, direct instruction, reading skills, 4 days a week, 40 minutes per day. It's phonemic awareness, vocabulary, and under fluency, we break that out into decoding and word attack skills. It's 6th, 7th, and 8th grade students who display reading skills below grade level benchmarks, really on NWA, Ames Web, and then based off of teacher feedback. Melissa really manages this for me and runs it and does the identification, works with teachers, provides professional development. And it's really intended to build and increase foundational reading skills in order for students to have stronger access to ELA and content classes. So the way that sort of the specifics of this, to start off with in the first trimester, 6 classes, 4 to 12 kids was the range, 42 students total that we served, 2 classes per grade level, parent consent to participate, 1 teacher per class, and then the academic interventionist, Melissa, really oversees progress monitoring, data collection, consults with teachers, and really runs monthly meetings to analyze data and make instructional changes. So this is some of the data that Melissa provided just in terms of, hey, can we give something to the board so they can see after 1 trimester the results. So September, 40% of kids below the fall benchmark. In December, 21% were below the winter benchmark. So we're already making gains after 12 weeks. 2% above the fall benchmark in September, and then 26 above the winter benchmark. So remember, we're trying to make up deficits of kids that are half a year, year and a half, 2 years below grade level in reading. And the way to make up that deficit is they have to not only make 1 year growth, they have to make in addition to that. Otherwise, they're always going to be that same amount behind. So it's really like running the marathon at a much faster pace than anybody else to really make that progress that they need to. So oral fluency, you can see still very much gains, and this is after 12 weeks of work. Melissa does feel like we are making progress and kids are making more beyond 1 year's growth in that amount of time. There are specific cases that we look at. Some students, for instance, might only receive 2 days of intervention because they have chorus the other 2 days. And some of those are more difficult conversations with where parents want to go with things and the importance of reading, also the grade level that they're in. If they're in 6th grade and a grade level behind, as opposed to being in 8th grade, they might have more time to catch up and be on grade level. So trimester 2 shifts, we picked up identified some more students. So now class ranges between 8 and 12, 63 kids total. 3 kids already graduated from the program. Remember, this is not like a 6-week sort of program. Kids are in and out and they're fixed. This is a long-term process. And I think some of that relies on the teacher skills, and those teacher skills increase over time with professional development, with experience. And then kids that graduate from intervention, we continue to progress monitor them to make sure that they don't fall back into a area that we're concerned about. And teachers shift groups based on specific needs, and this is really about catering to the specific needs of the kids, not just teaching to the general class, but really dividing and conquering, being efficient with how we deliver instructions for these kiddos. So, I'll pause there for a second. That was a lot. That was my Ignite change for this year. Okay to move on?
I'm impressed.
Thank you.
I think what's been amazing is I know all of your teachers, Drew, and the teachers that are doing interventions, they were like, Christine, I can teach phonemic awareness. Like they had never had that in their toolbox. They've never needed to. And yet Melissa has taught them how to do that, and they feel confident, and they now see that's a hole a kid had, and I can backfill it so that they can access. And you know, the professional development Melissa has provided, she has written the script, she has talked them through it, she has given them the lessons, has been invaluable for your teachers. I mean, they are literally glowing when they tell me about these skills that they are now teaching with kids, which has been a great, I think, uplifting piece that was a surprise, I think, to them.
I mean, one piece, I think this structure lends itself to efficiency and lends itself to really be able to cater to the specific needs of kids. But I can't say enough about having talented and qualified people to run this. I'm not talented or qualified to run an intervention program. It's not something that I come with experience in my prior district. Melissa is experienced, and to be able to say, I need you to run this and I need you to own it, and for her to be able to do that and do it so well is really what makes a difference. And then on the ground, you have teachers that are committed, that are invested in kids. Mr. Jackson, one of my 6th grade teachers, said this, he's done intervention for a long time. He said this is the first time that he thinks that it's working. So I think they've been asked to do it before, and we kind of say, hey, just why don't you go out there and good luck. And we kind of go like this, and you know, we're supposed to be doing it, but I think to be able to do it in the right way, and for teachers to be able to see that progress, and for parents to be able to see progress and know that their kids are receiving additional help and care. Even if our regular ed students that were not in intervention didn't make any gains, just for the fact of these 63 kids to get this type of instruction, I think is beneficial for the entire school, and it will change test scores, although I'm not concerned more about test scores as far as the individual kids being able to feel better about themselves. Many of these kids are kids that the model that we had previously is a pull-out model. So I say, hey, Don, come over and let's go do some reading today. Let's pull you out of math, or let's pull you out of whatever class. And there's an embarrassment with that. Everybody's reading at the same time. That's the expectation for the building, so I think students are a lot more comfortable, and they're actually in classes that other kids might have similar struggles, and I think they're opening up a lot more to understanding what it is that they need to work on, and because their progress monitored regularly, they can see their own progress, and they can see that they are doing better, and they can see the results in classes, and I think that's what really makes the individual differences for the students. All right, moving on. So, sorry.
Awareness, that's all, I just need to know what that is.
Jenny? I'm sorry, I'm going to defer to you right now.
Okay. Well, phonics is everything that's written. Phonemic awareness is sounds.
So, for instance, I'll walk by Peg Brown's 7th grade class, and the kids are doing choral reading. So, very fast-paced list of words on the board, and they're saying them together to understand how to pronounce the words. Many of them, they might pronounce the first part of the word, and then the last part of the word just gets like, and blah, blah, blah. And there's no, they just do, and part of it is they've learned some skills to get by, which is how they got here, is they've covered those things up. They know how to, they know how to get out of some of that work, so they haven't been explicitly taught the skills that they need to be successful at this point until now.
If you don't have a sound-symbol relationship, if you don't understand what this letter sounds like, you have no hopes of reading it, you know. So, does that answer your question?
Yes, thank you.
It's simplistic when you see it, but I think it is very powerful in terms of reading for the kids. And it's not just, hey, you're in this reading class. It's very specific in terms of what each kid needs. And that's the idea with having 2 teachers at each grade level. They can be very specific as to what each student needs. So last year we had some changes to staffing, and one of the changes that we talked about was adding a class called Digital Citizenship, which is taught by my librarian. So I wanted to just go over that quickly. It's a 6th grade class. It's 6 weeks long. Every sixth grade student has digital citizenship. So far, we're halfway through the year, so about 110 kids have gone through. So basically, the goals with digital citizenship, it's based off of the Common Sense Media curriculum, and students learn about digital media, how to interact with it in a safe, respectful, and effective manner. I think it dovetails very well to the presentation by the librarians that we have. So the focus areas, effective online searching, protecting identity, cyberbullying, online safety, and copyright. Teacher focuses on decision-making scenarios, and that's promoted a lot of great, relevant conversation. The classes that I've walked in on, kids are very engaged because it's very relevant to them. And much of it is problem-solving based. If this was posted, those types of things that they're experiencing now, or that depending on where the parent is with allowing access to those types of accounts, will be experiencing very quickly. Our thought was the younger the age, the better in terms of preventative measures. So they can develop good habits and understand the complexities of the internet environment and how to deal with things that happen on a regular basis. So hit them while they're young. Feedback from students, very positive. And then sixth grade students take a keyboarding assessment. So this was another piece that we talked about a little bit. So this is just some sort of preliminary keyboarding. If our target at the end of 8th grade is 30 words per minute, which I don't know, Randy, you probably know more about this than I do, but there's not really any benchmark that anybody's ever really set. I think 30 words sort of comes into this point where you can type probably as fast as you can think and get a reasonable amount of work done. So for our sixth graders, we're all over the place. About 43% are typing between 21 and 30 words per minute. That might not be as much of a concern. 22% are above 30 words per minute in sixth grade. They've already met that benchmark. And then we have some causes for concern, which is 11% are between 0 and 10 words per minute, way down there. And then in the other range is 23% at 11 to 20 words per minute. So right now, just to be very clear with everybody, we need to figure out what this means and then how we address that. I don't think we've ever looked at data like this before when it comes to keyboarding. My thought is that with the same platform over 3 years, kids that are slightly below 30 words per minute will probably get there, but we need to look at really interventions. A way to do that, it might be relevant homework for students, identifying that, your child is below this. If you can spend X number of minutes per week on typing, there are a lot of free online typing programs to help with that. And I think there's a difference between proficiency. I'm not sure iPads help the most with keyboarding skills. I would guess no. So I think having really keyboards at really from where are we now? 5, 4, all the way? 3 would be beneficial. Questions about digital citizenship, keyboarding?
Would you give the same, is it 30 words per minute, the benchmark for 6th grade or the benchmark for high school?
It's really, I think it's a benchmark for the end of 8th grade.
The end of 8th grade.
So one of the things I wanted to do is, one, it was sort of an easy dovetail for the librarian and to do some assessment. Before I wanted to get into programming, I figured, in my mind, we need to figure out what we know or what we don't know before we try to put a program in place that maybe isn't addressing what we need or is addressing something that we don't need. So ideally, there's going to be growth that they have over time if they're borderline. I'd be curious, it'd be one of these things, if we could predict 3 years out, the kids right now that are 0 to 10 words per minute, where do they end up? Do they end up at 30 anyways? Or are they ending up at 15 words per minute and we really needed some intervention?
Well, that would be my question. Could you give this test?
We can. We
at
could.
the end of 7th grade, at the end of 8th grade, and
It's an easy enough one that we could get school-wide data on that.
Because I think that would be really informative.
Yep. Where we started off, just where the plate was this year and how full it was.
Yeah.
It was just, let's start off with where are we with 6th grade?
Sure.
And then try to make some determinations from there.
Mm-hmm.
Good. All right, almost done. So music. You voted to add a full-time music teacher to the school, Morgan Riley, who is awesome, so shout out to her. So Morgan is, I have I stole her. We still have some bad blood there, but it's all right. Randy and I are getting over it.
Still like Morgan.
Yes. Thank you, Randy. So Randy, Morgan, basically I say run the music program. And Morgan does a fantastic job of that. So she does band, orchestra, and also chorus. So chorus meets two days per week, very similar to last year. There's a 6th grade group, and then there's a combined 7th and 8th grade group. Band and orchestra is offered every other day. So we have an A day and a B day applied arts for the entire school year. And some of that, for some students, it gets complex, and we can probably get into another 10-minute table to show you which choices they have and which choices are mandatory for kids when they choose to do a music class. But each session is 75 minutes. So 75 minutes every other day for the duration of the year, which is a gigantic
It's wonderful.
improvement based off of the amount of minutes that they were offered the previous year. So just some looking at the music program and how it's being built. Band numbers in 2013, in middle school, 40 kids, we've doubled that. Orchestra numbers, 27, doubled that. From Morgan's perspective, there's more individualized instruction, more class times, means more standards are covered, and students achieve a higher level of, I didn't know if this was a word, but Morgan says it is, so musicianship.
Oh, yeah, that's a word.
I'll take it. Students in band and orchestra have voiced their appreciation and how their music ensemble class is a real applied arts class.
Mm-hmm.
Before, music was done all crammed in during reach block.
Mm-hmm.
And so you can imagine the number of minutes that students had in terms of exposure to that, especially with a, music is, as you know, is not something that you can kind of walk in and you just start. There's some preparation, and you got to get your instrument out, you got to get set up, you got to get your music out. So by the time transitions occurred, I would probably guess less than a half an hour per session. So a lot more time for students now. And then if you look at students are better prepared for music in high school, and then 22 7th and 8th grade students attending Honors District 2 Festival this winter compared to 11 last year.
That's great.
And that's been a very proud accomplishment to read those names and to have that many students representing the middle school. I think it does show a vast improvement in the music program. I know that Morgan is very thrilled to have ownership of that, and I feel nice having someone that has ownership of the music program and having somebody that I can go to, talk to, and really collaborate with. She's loving it, and want to keep her around. So, questions about that? All right, last piece that I didn't write in that I meant to mention, and I'd like to. Christine and I have been having some conversations just about that the system of accountability at the high school. There's some we call natural consequences. It's called the diploma.
Right.
We don't have that in the middle school. And all I wanted to do is just have a brief conversation about really doing some brainstorming about how do we have more accountability for students at the middle school. I feel like some of the mentality, because there is not something that we hand to them at the end of the day, there's not a piece of paper that I necessarily sign off on that says they've met all the standards or the majority of the standards or that they're ready for high school. I think we need to start thinking about just having some conversations or thinking about how do we develop some mechanisms so that kids going into the high school have the best shot at succeeding in the high school. I think the bottom line is to be blunt, as you can imagine, there are kids that are being sent to the high school that are not ready for the high school. Some of that is, I think, because students are not taking it seriously enough. And some of the sentiments that they have when they get to the high school is that, well, now it counts because I need to get a diploma. So I didn't mean to close on that end of it, but I wanted to make you aware that Christine, Randy, and I, Chris, the assistant principals at the high school are involved in some of those conversations. And I think at some point it would be good to have an open conversation, an open dialogue about what that may look like. We may come up with some ideas about what that may look like, but I feel like we're missing a population of students that because there isn't accountability, they're not performing to the level that they would be able to. It's not about students that are working their hardest and trying their hardest and just need to fill in some holes. We're talking about kids that are capable but aren't stepping up to the plate and performing. And I feel that puts them behind and at a disadvantage when they start the high school, because it's it can be two drastically different worlds, and that's some of the gap that we're trying to close with the communication, with the conversations between 8th and 9th grade teachers, and then also the transition plan from 8th to 9th grade. Make sense?
Yeah, just having had a meeting on the graduation policy and talking about that couple of extra years up until the age of 20 that you can go to high school, that could be for some student 2 more years. So when you're mentioning this, and it makes perfect sense to me that students are prepared to go, because you always hear freshman year is so critical as far as all the jazz. Considering maybe the middle school isn't just 3 years if you don't meet the standards. And that would be a tough nut to crack, but if you're not prepared, you're not prepared. So that's an interesting concept. I like it.
It does, depending on routes that you go with sort of mechanisms to hold kids accountable, there are a lot of implications. There's funding implications, there's space implications.
Right, I agree.
If 30 more students stayed back next year to complete standards that they needed to complete, I'm not sure we have a space for them.
Well, the same can be said for the high school too.
Correct, yes.
Right.
So I do think it's something system-wide that we have to look at, whether we're looking at sort of gateways for students. But I do feel that the middle school mentality is different and is unique compared to a K-3 mentality and compared to the high school mentality.
Yeah.
And there is more, I think, by nature, some more apathy, some more not understanding sort of the bigger picture, just where they are developmentally.
Yeah.
But the bottom line is if they're not going over ready for 9th grade, I think we're putting them at a disadvantage. If it's because they need the extra help and support, then I think we need to offer that. If it's because they need a little kick in the pants, so to say, and to understand that there are high stakes when they get to high school, then I think setting up that culture would be important to do. But that's a large conversation.
I appreciate you thinking about that. I think that's really
Well, even the fact that our 9th grade teachers don't want to speak to 100 8th graders at once. They want to go into individual classrooms and pair up with the 8th grade teacher and have conversations about what is their expectations, because then it really becomes real. You're not sitting with 100 of your buddies in the cafeteria. So even just some shifts in their thinking, and I think what might also help is kids are seeing a partnership between 8th and 9th grade teachers that gives it a little bit more relevancy in their world. I mean, the middle school brain, I have one at home, I love it, but it just is. Then you listen to high school juniors and they're like, God, I really wish I got it back then. So how do you get them before they have to sit back and say, oh, why did I miss that opportunity? When you self-reflect and you look back after that time period.
Well, I also think
that.
when you have the 9th grade teachers coming and talking to the 8th grade students, it shows them that they're communicating. They're they're talking. Oh, I'm not just leaving Jordan Small and going to Wyndham High School, and those people won't know who I am, or Wyndham Middle School, and those people won't know who I am. They will.
I think it's a culture builder between the schools. When those conversations don't happen, it's easy to sort of separate out and say, well, those are Manchester's kids and those are high school kids. Where this really gets it to, these are all of our kids, and we're all here to help them to be successful, and this is a continuum. Because it's easy to get in our own buildings and our own classrooms and not have conversations with colleagues about what's best for kids and their learning.
Great idea.
Can I ask a really quick
And I think
question?
it would work, because you see it when kids go from high school to college, and that's a little bit of a culture shock when they're how much older, and I think you have to be a little more aggressive when you're going from 8th grade to 9th grade, because mentally they are just nowhere near maturity. The maturity level is just, not there at all. So I think it's great for that transition or not. Yes, Can.
Can I ask about the back of the band in music? And please stop me if you're gonna, I know you're up next as soon as we all get done talking. I was a big Morgan Riley fan, so I'm a little bitter myself that she's, but I'm just curious because I know Jordan Small, the music program changed. We used to, and I don't have a student at Jordan Small right now, so I'm not familiar with what's being offered now, but there was a large shift when we went from having it as a class that they could take to staying in from recess or taking a shorter lunch. There was a big change. So how does that compare? What are we offering at Jordan Small? How are we?
Yeah, so there really wasn't any change of any great. I mean, all the classes are still part of their regular schedule all year round. The only difference is 5th and 6th grade chorus, just to fit it in with the kids' schedule and the availability of staff. That impacts recess 1 day a week for those students. But that group is pretty good in number and growing, so that's promising. Everything else is, they make a choice. We have a little different model.
Yeah.
So 5th and 6th grade, all students take music, and they make a choice as to which of the classes they're going to take, and that impacts their schedule for art, phys ed, health, and so forth. So that's the way I group them in order to make it accessible to all kids. This is a different scheduling model, but ultimately the same outcome, which is you're able to incorporate those classes within, I think your slide said, it's like a real applied arts class.
Yeah.
Well, it's been like that at Jordan Small since we started being Jordan Small Middle School. It was just one of the content areas you had.
Yeah.
So the first 2 years, it was 5/8. You were required to take music, and we offered 3 different classes to meet those requirements in music. So that's not quite where we're at. The 6th graders, for instance, at Wyndham Middle, are not required to take music.
Yeah.
That's they're choosing to.
Sure.
We still have that requirement, so they're all getting the complement of the other classes as well.
I think it moved us closer to.
Much closer.
You look at the services between the two schools, and they weren't.
Right.
That's
And
good.
part of it's a function of schedule and
Yeah.
space
Oh, yeah.
and how staffing is shared. And so, I mean, we had a huge discussion in the administrative level, K-8, as to how to schedule music differently last year to make this all fit.
I think,
So-
I mean, I think it's awesome that it's given the focus that it needs or that it deserves. So I think that what you guys are doing is great. And, you know, I'm on the JSMS music bandwagon. I have been for a long time. I hear the principal plays a mean trombone.
He does, he's good. He was a good mentor, too, I think.
I heard that.
Does anybody have
Some of
any-
the staff who shall remain nameless.
Does anybody have any more for Drew? We all set? Are
Thank you
all
very
set?
much.
Thank you.
Thank you. I've had can we take a 5-minute break, please? Okay, welcome back. We are back from break. Next on our agenda is the principal of Jordan Small Middle School, Randy Crockett, to give us an update on JSMS.
And Raymond Elementary School,
And
too.
Raymond Elementary. Keep
So
it
it's
going.
if you read the first slide, it's like not the uplifting end of the evening topic, but I'll tell you what this is all about. So we have what I call the big school goal for both schools this year is around this topic. And the reason being that to some degree at both schools last year, we experienced a larger percentage of kids who were really dealing with some pretty difficult stuff in their current life or in the recent past, within the last year or two. And it affects a classroom, it affects a school, it affects the feel of things, it affects teacher morale and confidence. And so, you know, we had 2 or 3 years ago built belief statements and talked about things that we felt were important and so forth. And we were finding that these other things were getting in the way, or what we were doing, although helping many kids, wasn't helping enough of the kids. So I felt like I was a little bit adrift, frankly, in how to help the staff and resources, and I was talking to people in the district, and we had some help from one of the folks down at primary school who deals a lot with behavior issues with students, and we had help from other folks. And then, I don't know if it was by accident or I wasn't the only one having this problem, but the MPA had a spring conference all focused around social emotional health and students in schools. So, you know, for several years we've been working towards more learner-centered instruction and working on our standards-based proficiency models, and that incorporated all kinds of different components. And we felt we were making good progress on that. Growth mindset, building relationships, all those types of things. But still, we had this population of kids that we felt like we didn't have a handle on. We didn't know how to help them. And we didn't always know exactly what was going on with them. So we felt we were coming up short. And our new goal for this school year, and I'm thinking it's going to take more than a year, is how to help students build resiliency for themselves and to persevere through difficult things. And in some of the educational literature, there's now, you know, they call it grit. They refer to it as grit. And I think you all have sort of a personal idea of what that means. But, you know, given all the work with motivation and ways to keep students more engaged and looking at best practices to do that, you have to be resilient. So, anyway, this is where I'm going to give you a little background information, so bear with me. I've had a lot of sit and get, which, you know, that's not a good teaching technique. Not a long time ago. There was a study in California by a big insurance company, and they were not in the education business. This was all about adults, right? So they had this huge survey that they did, and they were looking for causes from childhood that related to health. And so in a nutshell, they found some really strong correlations between certain things that happened to people as they were growing up and how it impacted them as adults. And they call it a dose-response correlation. So I'm not into all the jargon and the scientific part, but basically there was a huge implications for this, and it's a large population size, 17,000 people. So adverse childhood experiences is what they have now called these things. And so if you are, as a child, involved in these experiences, it has an impact on your physical health later in life, statistically speaking. And so over a period of time, the social worker community, the mental health community, education community started looking at these things as well from this insurance company study. So you don't have to memorize those, but you get the gist, right? And there have been several different variations of this, but now the staff in both schools will just say ACEs, and we all know what that means, okay? And it's a wake-up call for somebody, like when I first became an administrator, I had no idea what some of the students, in my role as a music teacher, I wasn't involved in those. I didn't have that need to know. But how many kids are dealing with having one of their family members, usually a parent, incarcerated for whatever reason, and so forth. So this is the main statistics from 2012, and I got this from the Maine Resiliency Building Network, which is a fairly new group in the state. So 37% of Maine kids in that year had one or two of the ACEs from the previous slide, and 3 or more for 15% of the kids. And there is a bit of a correlation between the socioeconomic situation in Maine and having more ACEs. Makes sense, right? And some of these things would fall under the category of trauma. So there's the Webster Dictionary definition. But I think the most important part is the two items in bold. So acute traumatic events, such as, you know, a serious illness for one of your parents, a death in the family, those types of things, versus chronic traumatic events or situations. So, that causes stress. So some stress is positive. It makes you work a little harder. You have to think about things. You have to prepare. And not all stress is bad. Like Drew was saying about kids getting ready for high school, and sometimes we have to give them a little positive stress. Tolerable stress is something difficult's going on, but you've got a support network around you. And some of these things can cross over. It's obviously not one of the three. It could be parts of all of them. And then toxic stress, which is over and over and over a long period of time. And especially for kids, by those perpetuated or perpetrated by people who should be safe to you. So there's we talked a little bit about the physical impact in terms of health, overall well-being, but there's some major implications just for education. So there's things going on when you're under this level of stress or trauma that is actually impeding your ability to learn. It's actually getting in the way of what we expect you to come to school every day ready to do. The disruption of brain development is kind of going on at a chemical level. And I think it's really fascinating if people want to get into brain research and how the brain works and all that. But the best sort of easy model I've seen was last spring at one of these presentations at the conference was, here's your brain, and then you've got this part of your brain that is the survival part of your brain, right? So if you're always in that sort of survival mode, or you get quickly triggered into that survival mode, frequent fight, flight, or freeze cycles, where you've had to sort of learn that response, or you've had a lot of experience with that response, it becomes sort of what is going to be termed a paper tiger. You can't tell the difference between a real tiger, like that's what your brain was wired to do, so you could survive in the jungle, 20,000 years ago, whatever. And the term paper tiger meaning, I think I'm in real danger when I'm just in the classroom and some kid just dropped a book behind me, but I'm now in survival mode because I think something else is going on behind me. So it was described by one presenter as too wired, too tired, just being in that constant state or often in that state of survival response. And that sort of animal part of your brain running when we're trying to teach you phonetics.
Phonemic awareness.
And that stuff too. Drew and I, neither of us are English teachers. Science, right? Yeah. So what's going on when all that's happening is the frontal cortex is out of commission. And the frontal cortex is where you get short-term memory, which of course you've got to have to get long-term memory and learn new stuff. So all this is going on, and it's just not going to stick because your body's involved with that other response. What I didn't, and that's kind of like, okay, that makes perfect sense. I've heard this stuff before. What I didn't have any idea about was that long-term impact of being in and out of that sort of fight or flight cycle, and the cortisol, the hormonal response that's going on in your body, impedes physical development for kids and brain growth, and it can start before you're even born. So if your mother is in a traumatic situation, that's already going on for you before you even get started in life. So it has a lot of implications for education. What we needed to do, what I needed to help the staff do and understand myself also was to see what's going on with kids and recognize that it might be pain-based, it might be trauma, it might be stress. It might not just be the kid's being rude, or the kid doesn't want to do the work right now, or, they're overreacting. Little Johnny said something to Susie, and now Susie is a wreck. What's that all about? So these are the things we've been thinking about. When you see this, what's going on? Impulsive outbursts, aggression, inability to tolerate uncertainty and ambiguity. That has huge implications for a teacher, because you have 2 or 3 kids in the class that need to know what's going to happen ahead of time, and you don't tell them, and you wonder why this exciting new lesson isn't working. For those kids, it may be just that they didn't expect it and they don't like the unexpected, because quite often the unexpected isn't pleasant for them. And then kids that want to withdraw, shut down, run away, hide under desks, that type of thing. Self-injury is more of a adolescent, teenager problem. And for some kids with really severe issues, traumatic reenactment, they're sort of, going back. So then we all kind of go, well, we're just teachers, we're just educators, we don't know how to help these kids. Well, there's things we can do that, they may need more help than just us. But we can also do certain things. Folks that work in the behavior realm a lot talk about triggers and trying to look at kids' patterns of behavior and how they respond to things and say, here's something we're going to phrase in a different way, we're going to approach in a different way, and then you may not see those behaviors anymore. So we've identified a trigger. Providing choice, not just, you are going to do this right now because I'm the adult and you're 10, and that's the way it goes. And, once in a while, that's life. But it doesn't always have to be like that. So, even thinking about some of the things we've incorporated from student-centered instruction, voice and choice. It's got that emotional connection, too, where the student can feel more like they have some choices and control. So you're not able to do this reading assignment right now. I'll give you two options. You do this or this. Rather than, you're not going to do it, go to the office. Doesn't give them much chance to develop skills. And which gets to the fourth one. And just modeling and teaching them how to react to things. So we want to help all kids be more resilient. Students or people who have opportunities to give and help others start to get that resiliency and self-confidence. And coincidentally, and when I shared this with some of my staff, they weren't happy. But somebody said, like we do with community service. And I said, yeah, community service is great, but a one-shot experience like that doesn't help that kid really develop that whole process. It needs, for some kids, it would need to be more than that. But also helping students feel that they belong. So, in the younger grades, classroom jobs, and you have certain roles, and that stuff actually does matter. Application of rules to all, and kids that struggle with ambiguity and that struggle with fairness, and they pick up on consistencies and hypocrisy, especially in middle school. They're really good at finding hypocrisy in adults, and questioning it. So we just need to be really on top of that. And a new one I learned this fall was radical calmness, which I'm like, isn't that kind of a oxymoron or something? But the more a kid gets spooled up and upset, if you can be the adult who's calm on the outside, almost to the point of like non-reaction sometimes, that, even though inside you've got all kinds of stuff you want to say or do, it has the best effect, And that's a hard thing to do as a teacher. If you haven't been trained as a mental health professional, you kind of come from a different angle. And so kids that want to question things and are disruptive, how to keep yourself centered and focused so that it doesn't escalate the problem. And the last thing is really important is just in professions like education, nursing, social work, where you're giving a lot of your own energy to kids that struggle, kids that need a lot of support. How do you make sure you take care of yourself and help each other out and debrief if you need to when a difficult situation arises is critically important if you're going to be able to sustain sort of that caring, supportive level. And obviously nonviolence would be a good idea. But here again, predictable routine, structures, strong relationships, which, I think both of the Raymond schools have prided themselves on that. It's just part of the ingrained nature of the staff that relationships are really important. Everybody knows that, and it's something they work on. So this isn't like we had to, like, oh, we really need to work on all these things. These are things that you want to do always, but some that we identified in both buildings that we didn't realize or that we need to focus on more. So I think relationships, we're already doing a pretty good job with. Expectations, rules, and limits, we had that pretty well. SOPs is standard operating procedures, which is a kind of a buzzword we did a while ago, but a good way to remember it. The fourth one, some staff was pretty good at, but some are still working on. So kind of thinking ahead, the student is going to have some difficulty in this situation. What do we need to do ahead of time to prep the student or set the environment so that it won't become an issue? And just things that promote thinking about the future. And they made a good point, which was school itself is a future orientation. So talking about where does this step get you to, and what's your future going to look like, and that here's some options, and did you think about all that stuff becomes important for kids that struggle with resiliency and wanting to give up quickly. So that wasn't too long of a slideshow. That's the good news, right? So we're starting. I'm starting to see more awareness amongst the staff. And even if something doesn't go exactly the way they wanted it to with a kid, they can now step back and go, is there something I could have done differently that would have helped either resolve it or get it into a place where we could then talk about it with the kid, so that it's not necessarily just disrespectful behavior or rude behavior or confrontational at times behavior. And also when you do have a student that's maybe in a higher level of need and has some special education support around that, and you encounter that student in the building, and it looks like the staff member is not reacting, sometimes there's a reason they're not reacting, that's the right thing to do at the moment, and let the student process and get through something. And then you can go back, and there's a teachable moment there somewhere, but it isn't always when we, the teacher, want to I'm gonna teach you a lesson right now while you're still in what they call lizard brain, right? You're just in reactionary mode. It's not going to go in anyway, so there's no sense trying to process it with the kid when they're at that level. So it's kind of a squishy goal, I'm afraid. It's hard to say, well, okay, do I have any data to say we've improved our resiliency scores? No. But it's more anecdotal at this point. How are kids doing? And, trying to just remember the successes, so that I can think of one 6th grade girl who has 180 degrees from where she was in 5th grade at this time last year in terms of her ability to function in the school and learn in classes and be focused on that, not everything else that was going on for her. And that's just one example. But I think it has helped the staff build confidence and just some awareness of things on the surface aren't always as they seem. And when you can take a step back as the adult, you can kind of react differently. You learn from that, and in the future, you're even that much better. So it's not necessarily part of our training to know all this stuff. We focus on content. Most teachers are thinking about their content, not about a mental health side or the student's life experience at this sort of level that I was just talking about. So I'm hopeful that it makes a big difference for some kids, but I feel like this year it makes a big difference for Jordan Small especially. Just the vibe in the building with the staff is different. And so some of it's that awareness piece, I think. That and having the right staff in the right places probably helps too, as far as special ed and our interventionist. So beyond that, there's several goals in each building, and they're all connected to district goals. At RES, we've got the 90% reading goal for kindergarten, which is a huge undertaking for that grade level, for those staff involved in that. iPads at K1, That's a learning curve. It's going pretty well, but, you know, it's a whole new world. And, you know, all kinds of curriculum work going on, guiding principles, habits of work and grading, all those things are on the plates of various teachers in both buildings. So that's why I usually have 3 goals that I focus on each school year. And I said, this year, we've got a lot of district initiatives. Let's just focus on resiliency, helping kids persevere. So we've had a guest speaker come in and facilitate. She showed a documentary and then facilitated the discussion. That was in October. We've had some, the team leaders were trained in a half day prior to school starting around some of this work. We've done full training with the whole staff with the help of social work and guidance folks. So it's just keeping that awareness there, giving them tips as they come along, you know, every month and a half, to just keep the focus on, you know, we know we've got all this other stuff. We've got standards we need to work on. We've got assessments we got to prep, but don't forget about this stuff too. So
it's interesting that you said that, because as you're talking about, you know, outside distractions, and how it possibly relates to students and what's going on in their personal lives. Today I was at a safety meeting, and basically the instruction was to watch the guys wearing the white t-shirt passing the basketball and count the number of times the guys wearing the white t-shirt pass the basketball. So I'm watching the video and I'm marking it down, and at the end of the video the instructor says, all right, how many times did you guys get? And I said 14. And everybody else in the room called out their numbers. The answer was 15, so I missed one. And then he says, okay, now how many people saw the big giant black gorilla walk into the middle of the circle? I did not see the big giant black gorilla because I was so focused on what I was trying to pay attention to.
So coincidentally, I've seen that video in a presentation related to Resiliency Network build.
Yeah.
So,
did you see the gorilla?
Not at first, but then
people
start chuckling. Well, I lose the counting thing. I don't. You get past 5, but the.
So as it relates to, you know, personal lives, it can very much impact learning.
Sure.
So it makes educators' job that much harder when they've already got a full plate, and now they got to try and recognize a personal problem.
Yeah, and our experience last year at Jordan Small specifically was, with a couple of grade spans, was we've always had kids that needed extra support, extra help, extra effort. You know, that's nothing new, but we kind of somewhere along the line reached a tipping point in the equation where it's like, I got that fire going on over there, I got this one over here, and I think that one's going to have a meltdown. And then there's 18 other kids in the room who are sitting there going, I'm ready to go. So it doesn't just affect that child, it affects the classroom, it affects every kid, as well as the teacher, obviously, who's trying to do their best.
Yep.
So.
Great. Anybody have anything for?
That was the short version. So.
That was very good, Randy. Thank you.
You got the long end of the stick.
That was great.
Thank you.
That was very informative.
Appreciate the opportunity.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
All righty. Next on our agenda, we actually have 2 executive sessions that have to be done separately because they deal with contracts, and both of them are different contracts. So if so, and this is an update to the board. So if I could have a motion, please, on the first executive session.
I move to enter into executive session to discuss contract negotiations with our School 14 Administrators Association pursuant to 1 MRSA subsection 40560.
Second.
All those in favor? It is unanimous. We are in executive session.
Diane,